2024. It's the 9th consecutive year birth rates have fallen there despite the government putting in measures to try to boost them. It's believed fewer marriages after the COVID-19 pandemic have contributed to the decline. Can I ask you a favour? Can we just make Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News, broadcasting live from the Al Arabiya headquarters. These are our top stories. President Trump prepares to welcome UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer to the White House with defence spending and security guarantees for both Europe and Ukraine on the agenda. Andrew and Tristan Tate land in the US from Romania despite continuing to face serious allegations of rape, trafficking and money laundering. And Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman is found dead in his home in Santa Fe alongside his wife Betsy, as police say they had been dead for some time. To our top story, and British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has arrived in Washington for his first official visit with President Donald Trump. The US and UK leaders are expected to discuss Britain's recent defence spending increase, as well as security guarantees for both Europe and Ukraine. We can now go live to Washington to speak to our correspondent, Benji Hyer. Benji, we're expecting Keir Starmer to arrive at the White House any moment now. Talk us through today's schedule of events.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the current situation just outside the White House, you will see the processions taking place, and that is a preemptive to the UK Prime Minister stepping out of his vehicle and being greeted, I presume, by his American counterpart at the doors before they hold a meeting within the Oval Office. I think you can anticipate that there will be an impromptu Trump-style press conference at the top of that as a media spray where both leaders will face a range of questions, most probably related to Ukraine. They'll then have that behind the closed-door meeting where ending the war will be discussed in great length, as well as, we're told, other issues regarding trade and artificial intelligence, before both Sir Keir and President Trump face the media again in a news conference. There's often hyperbole, isn't there, when it comes to politics, geopolitical politics, but I think that what we've seen, given this dramatic shift in policy and tone and in actions by the Trump administration, especially vis-a-vis Ukraine, I think this is, rightly being billed as potentially the most important meeting between any British and American leader since the Second World War, and there will be serious repercussions for the security of Europe, the UK and Ukraine.
Yes, indeed, Benji. Trump and Starmer have actually met before, but it was at a dinner. So this is their first official White House meeting. The UK Prime Minister has said he hopes to start a new partnership. We hear a lot about this special relationship. What are we expecting them to discuss? I know, obviously, to be a fly on the wall in that one meeting that's not open to the press would be interesting.
Look, they're two very different personalities, and it's going to be interesting to see how Sir Keir goes about dealing with the US president and towing that very careful line between deference to Donald Trump and actually rebuking his worldview. He says he wants to act as a bridge between the US and Europe, and he is hoping that his most recent promises of an increase in British military spending and also his pledge to potentially put British troops on the ground as part of a peacekeeping force in Ukraine might appease President Trump, but there is still a divergence of views when it comes to what Sir Keir sees as an important element of a post-war relationship, and that is a US backstop to properly ensure that there is a deterrent for Russia's President Vladimir Putin, and he's not encouraged, for example, to invade Ukraine again. I think there will also be a push from the UK Prime Minister to get the President to recognise what was the previous sort of geopolitical norms, where there was that special relationship between the US and the UK. There was a closeness between US and European allies. Contrast that with what we've seen so far 1 month into Donald Trump's presidency, which is a softening in tone certainly towards Russia, casting doubt on NATO and branding President Zelensky of Ukraine a dictator. But there is not a huge amount of time in order to try to convince Donald Trump of anything, given that President Zelensky is due to be here in Washington tomorrow to sign a deal in which President Trump might be able to claim some sort of victory, a ceasefire, recuperate some American money that he feels has gone to Ukraine in excess. It's less a peace deal, more sort of an economic agreement, but that could signal some move towards the end of the conflict and a push from Ukraine to at least be at the table, as opposed to have the United States and Russia negotiating whatever sort of ceasefire deal there is behind Ukraine's back.
Benji, Hyer in Washington, thank you so much. Let's get into this further with Scott Lucas, Professor of US and International Politics at the Clinton Institute, University College in Dublin. Professor, good evening to you. The US and UK are really a well-established alliance. As I mentioned earlier, they often talk about the special relationship, but this meeting comes at a real critical time for both countries. How historic do you think this visit is?
Well, personally, I'm not a big fan of the term special relationship. I think it's more myth than reality. But I think this meeting between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump is probably the most important since the meetings between Tony Blair and George Bush before the Iraq War in 2003, since maybe Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s towards the tail end of the Cold War, maybe even the most important visit since the early years of the Cold War, when the US-European alliance was being established. And the reason why? Because I think for the first time in 84 years, since 1941, we have a US government, or rather a Trump administration, that is breaking that alliance with Europe. They see no need for the US to be involved in a mutual security partnership. They don't see it as being necessary for US security, for the security of Ukraine, or for European security. And I think that with Donald Trump, who is not really as much a president as we know presidents to be in terms of representing Americans, but he's more treats it as being the head of a business, like he does the Trump Organization. It's very hard to navigate that because, in a sense, to save that alliance, you have to give Trump some type of win that he thinks of in almost a win-lose terms rather than a win-win relationship for both sides.
Yes, indeed. As you said, pretty much Starmer is walking a really tight rope at the moment as he does see Donald Trump later today, well, in the next few minutes, really. We saw President Macron's success at the White House earlier in the week. Is there pressure on Starmer to continue that success? And as you say, really for the future of Europe and its security concerns at the moment?
It's not just pressure. Once again, it's essential. Because what you have here is you've got three visits that are actually linked. Emmanuel Macron on Monday, Keir Starmer today, Vladimir Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, tomorrow. And the immediate issue that links all three of these is the need for a security guarantee for Ukraine if Russia's invasion continues, or even if there's a ceasefire deal. What Starmer and Macron are presenting, not just to Trump. Remember, there will be meetings going on behind the scenes with Trump's officials. They're presenting the idea of deploying British and French troops, and possibly troops from other members of NATO in Western Ukraine, to protect the energy infrastructure, to protect facilities like drone manufacturing plants, to bolster air defenses. Now, for that to work, they need a U.S. backstop. They need U.S. air power to deter the Russians, U.S. air power based in Poland and Romania. Can they convince Trump that it is in his interest to maintain some type of U.S. involvement in Ukraine's resistance to this Russian invasion? That's a big ask for Starmer to do so, but he's doing it not only for Ukrainian security, he's doing it for the future of Europe as well.
So what kind of bargaining chips does Starmer have in order to convince Trump that this backstop is something that's really needed? Because we heard Trump speaking in his first cabinet meeting last night, and he seemed to dismiss that request.
Yeah, and in fact, I am pessimistic it's going to work, but I think the play is this. But remember, not just to Trump, to members of the Trump administration, to agency heads, and to Republican members of Congress. And it goes like this. Look, Donald, you're the leader of the most powerful country in the world. You're the leader of a country which economically and militarily has been an example for others, politically, has fought against fascism in World War II, fought against the Nazis, won the Cold War. Your legacy is to be part of that tradition of standing up for America as a leader of the world. We need you to lead now. We need you to lead not by walking away from us, by working with us. Do I think it'll work? I think it has to be combined with other things. You have the minerals deal, in which Ukraine has agreed to provide some of its minerals to the U.S. You have, I think, Keir Starmer talking about raising the UK defense spending, even though this is already planned. You have other European countries saying they are going to raise defense spending as well. And they can all say, even though it may not be true, it's because of you, Mr. Trump. If they make that play to Trump's ego, they've got a chance, but it can't just be to Trump. They've also got to get to the adults in the room, whether it's Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the National Security Mike Waltz. They've got to get someone who will listen to the realities of the political, economic future of the U.S. and Europe, and indeed the Middle East, and say that these are intertwined.
You did touch on this, but tomorrow President Zelensky will be making his way to the White House. Are we expecting the mineral deal to be signed?
Yeah, the mineral deal will be signed because that's the photo opportunity. I mean, it was confirmed earlier this week. Ukraine actually has gotten much better terms out of it than the ultimatum that they were presented with the U.S. 2 weeks ago. It's actually a win for Ukrainian diplomacy and European diplomacy. But the big issue is that Zelensky sees this only as the first step to getting those security guarantees. Indeed, the Europeans see it only as a step to getting the security guarantees. So in a way, signing this agreement is only the first act in a much, much more important play where we may not see the final act for some days or even weeks to come.
Scott Lucas, Professor of US and International Politics at the Clinton Institute, University College, Dublin. Thank you so much for joining me with your insights this evening.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at some of the other stories making the headlines today. Hamas has handed over the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages in exchange for the release of more than 600 Palestinian prisoners. The remains of the 4 men who were abducted on the 7th of October 2023 were the last hostages to be handed over as part of the first phase of the ceasefire deal to the Red Cross. The Palestinian prisoners were reunited with their relatives and surrounded by cheering crowds as they arrived at the West Bank. Now, Seoul's spy agency has reportedly claimed North Korea has sent more soldiers to Russia. South Korean and Western intelligence agencies say more than 10,000 North Korean soldiers were sent to Russia last year to help fight the Ukrainian offensive at the Kursk border. An official for the agency said the exact scale of the new deployments is still being assessed. The number of babies born in Japan fell to a record low in 2024. It's the 9th consecutive year birth rates have fallen there, despite the government putting in measures to try and boost them. It's believed fewer marriages after the COVID-19 pandemic have contributed to that decline. And a SpaceX rocket has launched a privately built spacecraft on an unprecedented mission. The probe, called Odin, will see its first possible to mine an asteroid believed to be rich in platinum and similar metals. It will take 300 days to catch up with the asteroid. That's 1 million miles from Earth. Pretty amazing stuff. In the last few hours, imprisoned PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan has given a statement from jail calling for peace with Turkey. The historic declaration is hoped to end the decades-long conflict between Kurdish groups and Turkey. Turkey's pro-Kurdish DEM party leader, Pervin Buldan, delivered Öcalan's message and had this to say.
In this climate created by the will of Mr. President Erdogan and the positive approaches of other political parties towards the call in discussion, I call for laying down arms and assume the historical responsibility of this call. As every contemporary society and party whose existence has not been terminated by force would do voluntarily. Gather your Congress and make a decision for integration with the state and society. All groups should lay down their arms and the PKK must dissolve itself.
Andrew and Tristan Tate, the social media influencers held in Romania over rape, trafficking and money laundering accusations, have arrived in the US by private plane today. The brothers, who hold dual UK-US nationalities, flew out of Bucharest and in the last hour landed in Fort Lauderdale in Florida. Romanian authorities gave them permission to leave the country, but the two men remain under judicial control. Let's get the latest with our foreign correspondent, Sara Firth, who is in Washington. Sara, good evening to you. Do we know why the Tate brothers were actually allowed to leave Romania and what conditions they'll have to comply with, considering they're still under investigation?
Yes, well, this Romanian travel ban lifted and the Tate brothers have landed here in the US, in Florida. And now Romanian prosecutors have said that they approved this request to lift the travel ban, but there are some legal requirements around this release of the travel ban. One of those is that the Tate brothers, Andrew and Tristan, return to Romania in March. Whether or not that happens, though, remains to be seen. And another is that they have to be on call anytime the authorities want to reach them. Now, a spokeswoman for the Tate brothers has reportedly said that the Romanian courts have also decided, pending this criminal investigation, to release some of their assets. So if that proves to be the case, then they will have a return to their frozen funds, their vehicles, and they are here now on US soil, despite those very serious allegations against them that both the brothers deny.
We're actually just having a look at some live pictures at the moment, Sara, and we are waiting for the Tate brothers to come out of the Fort Lauderdale airport. There's a whole press pack waiting patiently to see when the two brothers will eventually leave the doors of the airport, and they might have something to say. As you did say, that the brothers did leave Romania on a private plane flying to the US. But Sara, just remind us exactly of what they've been accused of and their response to the allegations against them.
Well, they've denied all the allegations against them, and the allegations are serious. They're allegations of sexual misconduct, money laundering, human trafficking. There's actually also a court case in the UK as well. These are very serious accusations, as I said, that both Andrew and Tristan, the Tate brothers, have denied. Leigh Ann, I just want to talk to you about what some of the alleged victims are saying in response to this breaking news today, that they have been had that travel ban lifted and that they've landed here in America. So there are 4 British women who allege rape and coercive control. And look, in all these headlines that you're seeing right now, we're going to hear from the Tate brothers. We're going to hear from members of the Trump administration. And it's very easy, I think, to lose the voices of those alleged victims. They have said that this news has re-traumatized them. They also said it is clear that there is now a major risk that criminal prosecution will not proceed. So that is the impact on some of the alleged victims of the Tate brothers for those crimes that are under criminal investigation right now in Romania. But as we've seen, the Trump administration, they've been lobbying the Romanian government. It seems that has been successful. And today, the Tate brothers have touched down in America, largely thanks to Trump's administration.
Yeah, let's talk about that further, actually. There are reports that President Trump has had some involvement in their case, as you mentioned. His special envoy, Richard Gurnall, reportedly spoke with the Romanian government to lift the brothers' travel ban. There's a lot going on, and obviously they are such high-profile social media influencers that Donald Trump, in some ways, you know, helped him when it came to his election.
Absolutely. We're in a different time and space right now. And Leigh Ann, you've really hit the nail on the head there, because if you look at Andrew Tate's social media presence, his demographic, it's the exact same demographic that is the core base of Trump's supporters. When you look at the election that took place that's given him this mandate for a second term, I think it's 6 in 10 white males under 30 voted for Trump. So he sees this as a very powerful ally and tool in these social media influencers who have this kind of access to this type of audience that make up Trump's supporters. Andrew and Tristan Tate, they are self-described misogynists. You said you've had the US Special Envoy Richard Gurnall, the Romanian foreign minister, saying, yep, in the halls of the Munich Security Conference, we spoke about this issue. Now, I think a lot of questions being asked here is, given everything going on in the world and everything that America is dealing with right now and that President Trump is dealing with, why on earth would the Trump administration make the Tate brothers, who are facing such serious allegations and a criminal investigation in Romania, any kind of priority? Leigh Ann, I've been reaching out and speaking to some contacts here in DC, and some of those sources are saying it's very, very simple. When it comes to Trump, loyalty above all else is what he rewards. And he sees someone like Andrew Tate, who we know in the past has been very openly supportive on his social media platforms of President Trump. He's at one point said Trump is saving the world. He's got a relationship with Donald Trump's Jr., with his son. They've met in the Trump Tower before. They've got photographs together. So, Andrew Tate in particular, using his social media clout, has really in the past backed Trump. And well, it seems, according to the sources I've been speaking to, that has paid off, because that loyalty has been seen by President Trump and the Trump administration as something worth involving themselves in at a time when you've got foreign leaders, world leaders coming into DC. You've got the British Prime Minister here today meeting with President Trump. It will be interesting to see if any of the British journalists bring up this issue, given that there is an investigation, a criminal investigation in the UK as well. Of course, it's extremely unlikely you'd see any sort of extradition of the Tate brothers. And the question now really is, with these legal requirements that Romania has said that they've laid out for them to return in March, to face justice, to face these claims and go through the proper procedures. Will that actually happen? Well, today they're in Florida. We'll be hearing from them. And just once again, the headlines are going to be the Tate brothers. They're great at a soundbite. President Trump, also great with a soundbite. And just in the midst of all this, the words of those alleged victims, the women who say that they were coercively controlled by Andrew Tate, saying that they were re-traumatized by everything that's playing out right now.
Sara Firth, foreign correspondent in Washington, thank you so much. The Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy have been found dead at their home in Santa Fe, New Mexico. In a career spanning more than 6 decades, Hackman received 2 Academy Awards for his work on the movies The French Connection and Unforgiven. Police say the couple had been dead for some time and were found in different rooms, but don't believe that foul play was a factor at this time. Let's get the latest with our correspondent, Mitch McCann. Mitch, thank you for joining us. This news has come as a real shock to Hollywood. Police don't expect foul play, but the circumstances around their deaths are being investigated. Their dog was also found dead alongside them. What do we know so far?
Leigh Ann, good morning from New York. Yes, tragic news out of Santa Fe, New Mexico concerning Gene Hackman and his wife. We have a statement from the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office that they've put out that says, "We can confirm that both Gene Hackman and his wife were found deceased Wednesday afternoon at their residence on Sunset Trail in New Mexico. This is an active investigation. However, at this time, we do not believe that foul play was a factor." Now, at this stage, that doesn't really tell us much around how both Gene Hackman, his wife, and their pet animal died. But we are seeing reporting from the entertainment website here in the United States, TMZ, and this is, of course, unverified, but it is worth reporting here that the family members of the deceased believe that carbon monoxide poisoning may have played a role in their deaths. Now, this is unverified, as I mentioned, but they do suspect carbon monoxide poisoning might have been involved. And this is tragic news for many reasons, of course. But of course, Gene Hackman was a famed Hollywood actor. There have been many tributes this morning. He won 2 Oscars and he's had a very interesting career, one that started on Broadway here in New York, led him to Hollywood, and he finished up in New Mexico, where he spent the last 15 years really keeping to himself, involved in art and writing books. But a very sad situation there in New Mexico.
Yeah, extremely tragic. And you mentioned, he's had this amazing career. He's a legend, really, when it comes to acting. There's been so many tributes coming in for them, hasn't there, for both him and his wife, Betsy?
Yeah, that's right. As you mentioned, he has had an amazing career. He won his first Oscar in 1971 for the movie French Connection, and the other, he won a Best Supporting Actor for the 1992 Clint Eastwood Western movie Unforgiven. Now, many people that he's worked with over those decades have put out tributes this morning, and one is Francis Ford Coppola, who directed Hackman in the 1974 movie The Conversation. He said on Instagram this morning, "It's the loss of a great artist. It's always cause for a celebration, both mourning and celebration. Gene Hackman was a great actor, inspiring and magnificent in his work." George Takei from Star Trek, many of our viewers will know him, said online that one of the true giants of the screen, referring to Gene Hackman, he said he could play anyone and you could feel a whole life behind it. He could be everyone and no one, a towering presence or an everyday Joe. And one of Hackman's best-known roles during his career was Lex Luthor in the Superman franchise. And Michael Rosenbaum, who played Lex Luthor in the TV series Smallville, said Hackman was his favourite Lex Luthor and one of the greatest actors ever. So some important tributes from actors generations gone by and some more modern actors as well.
Mitch McCann in New York, thank you so much for bringing that news to us. Let's take a look at the top business news now. New US steel tariffs are set to disrupt a multi-billion-dollar supply chain moving steel from China to America via third countries. This is heightening competition in the global market and undercut a vital source of sales for China's struggling steel sector. President Trump's 25% steel duty, which is due to come into force in March, will hamper this trade. That's according to China's 4 leading steel consultancies. Mercedes-Benz is planning to cut 25% of its workforce in China by 2027 to achieve its goal of reducing workforce costs in its biggest market. The German luxury car maker has announced further cost-cutting measures globally after warning that 2025 earnings would be significantly lower. This comes amid bruising price competition in China and rising global trade tensions. Turning to sports news now, and the 2025 Formula One season is underway as Bahrain hosts the official pre-season tests for all 10 teams as momentum builds towards the first race of the season in Australia next month. Today is day 2 of pre-season testing. Ferrari's Lewis Hamilton was the fastest in the morning session. Lando Norris and McLaren were the quickest on the opening day. And Liverpool are on a roll as they charge towards the Premier League title after a 2-0 win over Newcastle, putting them 13 points clear at the top of the table. Second place Arsenal dropped points in a goalless draw at Nottingham Forest as Arne Slot's side took full advantage at Anfield. Slot watched from the stands as he began his 2-game touchline ban. Returning to business news now, and shares in electric car maker Tesla have fallen more than 9% after sales decreased by more than half in Europe and the UK. The motor company, owned by Elon Musk, has faced competition from Chinese manufacturers, but it's believed that Musk's political ambitions could be the reason for the drop in shares. Tesla's valuation has tumbled below $1 trillion for the first time since November 2024. I'm now joined by motoring journalist and transport campaigner Quentin Willson. Quentin, Tesla shares seem to have gone off-road and have lost most of their gains following President Donald Trump's November election victory. What is driving the slump in shares currently?
Well, I'm talking to you from the UK, where they're down 45%. Now, some of that is the effect of Chinese models, which are more competitive, better operating systems, and much cheaper. But anecdotally, we're hearing that there are people, particularly in Europe and Germany, who just don't want to drive Teslas because of Musk's political interventions. I just with 2 people, one with a Model Y, one with a Model 3. They really love the cars. They've had them a long time, but they're going to change to Polestar for ideological reasons. So we'll see in the first quarter of the year what this really means in terms of sales. But looking at it right now as a snapshot and listening to the mood on social media, there's definitely a pushback.
So the mood music is pretty much pushing back against Elon Musk's political views. But over the last year, Tesla is still up by 40%. So it's not all doom and gloom for the electrical vehicle maker and Elon Musk, is it?
No, I mean, these cars are very good. I drive one. I've had one for 4 years, 45,000 miles, and it's great. It works really, really well. And the supercharger network is great. But this intervention with other countries' policies, particularly with the AfD in Germany, is really turning his liberal kind of democratic base who were the early adopters and bought his cars away from the brand. And when you have a CEO of a car company who is so dominant, it makes it really, really difficult if he's going to start talking about issues which he shouldn't. Car CEOs don't normally do this.
So do you think that if he steps down from Tesla in some ways, this will encourage the base to go back to buy them? Do you think he's the problem overall?
I think basically yes, and the board should think very, very, very carefully about getting him to stand down, because it will imperil the future of the brand. He's got lots and lots of other businesses, SpaceX, the satellite things, the Boring Company, etc., etc. But this is the kind of cornerstone of the whole empire. And if the brand is affected like this, it makes the future for Tesla cars very difficult indeed, I think.
Quentin Willson, motoring journalist and transport campaigner. An absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to take you to some live pictures now. We are seeing, there we are, President Donald Trump meeting Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He's arrived at the White House. The mood music pretty much ahead of this meeting appears to be positive, and that's following Starmer's appearance at the British ambassador's residence last night. So we can see, there we are, at the White House for you. Trump has spoken of his fondness for Starmer. Starmer, as we did talk earlier, is walking this tightrope as he looks to negotiate tariffs and ensure the US provides security guarantees for Ukraine. So there we are. We have seen the UK Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, shaking hands with President Donald Trump ahead of that historic meeting. Now, a reminder of our top stories. President Trump welcomes UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer to the White House with defence spending and security guarantees for both Europe and Ukraine on the agenda. Andrew and Tristan Tate land in the US from Romania despite continuing to face serious allegations of rape, trafficking and money laundering. And Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman is found dead in his house in Santa Fe alongside his wife Betsy, as police say they had been dead for some time. And that's all from us on W News. Thank you so much for joining us. The dressing room is coming up next. And of course, don't miss Tom Burges Watson with a GNT. Good night and thank you for joining me.
Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News.
It's very impressive.
Where knowledge meets perspective.
Welcome to the dressing room with our Arabiya News. Good to see you, chaps.
Good to see you. He's back, ready, got a tan.
Yeah, a little tan from the slopes, mate. It was a good week.
Is it?
Good week. I love skiing, but do you know what was really frustrating? My kids are still better than me at skiing. Like, and they let me know. Like,
still better.
Still better.
You've not improved one bit.
I can't. It's gone now, isn't it? Like, I'm at the back, and that condescending look behind the mountain, and I'm just there, just like going, Dad.
You're just taking your time.
Oh, geez, right. So when we went,
the kids started following me. But we go off piece a little bit, come on, little jumps, and all I can hear him in the background is going, "No, don't follow him."
My Harry went to me, Dad, I love skiing. He said, I prefer it when Bridgie's there because he's like a big kid. I was like, just fueling him up with sweets on the lift.
I've got to make it out to...
Geez, you'd love it. But no, what he done to me, like, I was embarrassing, right? Because he's naughty, my youngest, and I'm waiting at the lift and he's getting fidgety, and you know you're a little bit unbalanced. So he's knocked me, but I'm on my skis and I've stumbled onto this person, stumbled onto them, right? And I'm saying, sorry. And he's gone, Dad, how are you getting bodied by a 9-year-old?
Oh my gosh.
This kid. Oh. And I'm looking at it and everyone's looking at me like, oh mate.
Do you know what, yeah, that's the worst thing. Because like my son, 13 now, and he just walks around the house eyeing me up.
Does he?
Like, he's sizing me up like to think, I can do this guy now. I'm at the size and the level where I think, and because he's doing well in his football now, he thinks he's the boy.
Does he?
So, yeah, like, that's the worst thing. And then when they do, like, give you a knock and you stumble, because you're not... They think, like, I was like, you don't want me to use my man strength on you. I don't even want to have to go there with you anyway. Like, you're a little kid, but I'm going to have to. It's going to have to come out soon, Bridgie. Trust me.
You're going to have to, mate.
Yeah, man, you have to show him.
So Yeah, so how was Siddy? He done...
Yeah.
I love Siddy, by the way.
Oh, Siddy's
great,
top person, top character. The Crouch Pods really, like, they know what they're doing when they signed him up, because he was like, they're so lucky to have him, man. But he's such a great guy, great personality, as I said. Hopefully... And actually, I got some good stories out of him.
Yeah.
We did, didn't we?
Yeah.
The number nine dog, Chelsea. That was a good story.
He's good at it.
Yeah, but there's loads of other things that he said that was really good. But yeah, you weren't missed.
Yeah. Siddy's that guy. I actually had a bad turn about a year ago at TNT, where I fainted, right? I had a little bug, but everyone was panicking, and Sid's is that guy that just cool, calm and collected, like, brought me round. Everyone was calm. He's just that guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's that guy.
Measured.
That's happened to him before, though.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you lot, man? Low blood sugar levels or something. What's going on?
Hard out there, Coley. It's hard out there.
A lot of pressure on you, yeah?
Living in Chelsea.
Made it back for the night out, though, didn't you, Gee?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we had a little night out. It was lovely. We had a good time, didn't we?
Yeah, it was really good. I am feeling it a little bit today still.
Oh,
yeah.
mate.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm a bit jaded.
Yeah, jaded.
So I think it's the
Jaded
sleep.
edge.
Obviously, like, there's a few lads out there ain't got kids.
Yeah. They don't understand, do they?
Until like 3 p.m. the next day.
Is it?
Yeah.
Decent.
They don't understand just the levels, getting up, football.
Yeah, they don't get it, do they?
I was playing swing ball at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, you're special, mate. All right, Geese, how are you? Yeah, I'm playing swing ball in the garden. February.
I lost my phone. You know, like,
messy.
I don't want to get into it, but it's not. It's not when you get to the level of losing your phone, then you know it's a mess, isn't it?
That's the worst feeling.
Yeah.
That's the worst feeling ever.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Losing the phone.
Anyway,
what did you do last week, Bridgie? Anything?
No, I didn't get up too much last week, to be honest. It's fairly
subdued.
It was a quiet week.
Subdued.
Mate. It was a quiet week. Yeah.
Well, the football.
I had a little. I had to leave my mate's moving to Australia.
Right.
She's from Australia. She's taking the whole family. So he had a few leaving drinks, but it was quiet because we were going out the next day.
Right.
So I popped along for a little bit.
A quiet Wainbridge drink. That's a rarity.
Yeah, it's quiet.
That is a rarity. Should we get onto the football?
Yeah, come on.
Right, let's get onto the football then. Right.
Title race.
Wow.
It's over.
Is there a title
Romeo
race?
done.
It's over, isn't it?
It's over, innit?
Yeah, mic drop. See you later.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of bookies that have paid out on them already.
Have they?
Yeah. That's bold, but I'll be half inclined to think that's the right.
Saying how they get through this next period because they had 3 tough games. Well, it was Villa, City, and then I can't remember who they got next.
It was Everton, wasn't it? It was the derby.
Yeah, the derby.
Oh, yeah.
So they drew 2 and won 1.
Yeah.
I think we
Because
said
we were saying they might lose momentum. How's it going to affect them? But
and they got Newcastle as well next. So there's like 4 tough games really.
Yeah,
they've come
then
through
you look
all right.
at
Arsenal dropping points.
Yeah, and then you got Arsenal dropping points. That's the main part for me, the Arsenal thing. Because look, you always got to have someone chasing you to go and do. But Arsenal were the ones that were the closest for me, and they've just dropped off. And obviously against West Ham, they was expected to win that game, and they didn't.
They done well by the West Ham. I was impressed by they were pressing, closing down.
Yeah,
they looked up for it.
Yeah,
aggressive with the pressing. Always on them.
Yeah, we'll get onto that quickly. I just want to ask, Cole, I want to ask you as a striker now.
Yeah.
Right. Did you hear Pep? I read something into it a little bit when he said Erling Haaland told me he couldn't play. You know, sometimes managers.
Did he stop?
Yeah.
Wow.
He said, do you read into that? Because usually if a manager goes, he'll get a question asked, he'll be like, oh, he couldn't play or he's injured. But to actually take the time out to go, Erling Haaland said he couldn't play.
He couldn't play.
That says to me that he thinks Erling could have played, maybe. You know?
Yeah, so for me, you want to play as a striker anyway. Even when I had one knee out there, I was limping. I could just get one chance and it's in the net.
Yeah.
You know, so you'd want to play, but it doesn't look like he's enjoying his football. Are they enjoying their football? Or is it a big game? If they're not getting a result, and they've not been used to this, Man City, they're used to being winners, not coming second fiddle to no one. But that quote there, it gives me a little bit of doubt that does he trust him? because if the player's saying, I can't play, and he's probably thinking, you can, but you're not exerting yourself. That's why I'm reading it, because the wording's very particular. Erling Haaland said he cannot play.
I think that's a tough one though, because you got to know the player because I feel like I would always, if I can play, I'll play.
Right.
But if I ever feel something
that's not right,
if I'm 50-50 or I'm unsure, I'll probably just go and play. But I remember at Man City, I said to play. I'd only just come back from injury, so you know what? I can feel my quad.
Yeah.
It just don't feel right.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember what Mancini said, but he was acting like I didn't want to play. And I said, well, I want to play. So I just went ahead and played anyway. I tore my quad in 2 places.
See?
Yeah.
So it's...
Yeah. You got, as a manager, you got to trust your player, though.
You got to trust in what they're saying.
You got to trust your player. Like, look, for me, I'll always say, how you feeling first? Because I want you to be top notch. I want you to be 100%. We're not going to be 100%, but I want you to be capable of doing the things you usually do on a Saturday. Sometimes even your presence on the football pitch. Yeah. So if you're a goal scorer and you're a goal threat, it changes the whole aspect of how the opposition look at that team.
Yeah.
They don't think they can just go and have an easy game. Just you being on there, you might be 50% fit, but just having that one name, Erling Haaland, on the pitch, it sends a message to everybody else. Yeah. So sometimes you have to, as a player, sacrifice sometimes your fitness for the good of the team. And you might not have that. People might question you, he wasn't at it today, but there was a reason why he was, and the manager knows that, and you sacrifice going out on that pitch for him.
That's the thing. So, we're not saying that Erling Haaland didn't want to play. Like he's obviously he's injured. You know, what I mean? He's a warrior, the geezer. He wants to play, but when you go out on the pitch, you're never 100%. Are you, Bridgie? Really? Whenever you're out there, you're never at your absolute perfect best. But the fans, as soon as you pull that strip. They expect you to be the person that they've seen you in weeks before. So it's a difficult decision. I remember playing games where I remember playing a game for Villa. And there weren't many I played at Villa, but I was bad to play. My hip was so bad, right? I'm getting out of my car. I know when you lift your leg out, like you just, this hip flip, I couldn't even lift it up.
Wow.
So they're looking at me and I'm holding my trousers trying to get my leg out of the car to go and play in the Premier League. And I'm limping in like...
mad, isn't it?
And I'm limping in. I'm thinking, I'm not telling the physio because I was like, man, I so wanted to play.
This as well.
And I was like, I got into the game and it was within minutes. I was like, nah, it's not me. But you got like... Sometimes you're your own worst enemy when you push yourself through, and sometimes you've got to do it. It's a hard balance to get. But I just thought with Pep, there was a little something there he wasn't happy. Little dig, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a little dig, because you don't go out to the press and do that. You always protect. He's always known for protecting his players. So for him to single them out like that was kind of strange.
Yeah, do you know what I heard from him? I can't remember who told me. He said, he's obviously got 23 world-class players, and he says to these teammates, he said, look, if I don't pick you, and you think you should be picked, come see me, feel free, absolutely, but bring the player you think you should be picked instead of...
Oh, no. That's awkward.
Imagine that. I should be... Come here for a minute.
I'm trying along. I'm behind you, I don't even know what's going on.
You can go, Gaffer. Really? But it's brilliant. I think that's absolutely brilliant.
That's ballsy.
It's ballsy, yeah. I wonder if anyone... It'd be good to know we know any Man City players if anyone's ever pulled that stroke.
Oh, mate.
Because even for the banter alone.
I can imagine anyone.
The banter. I'll do it for banter.
Mate.
I'll do it for banter. I'll say, listen, lads, watch this. What I'm going to do to him. I'm pulling him up. I'm going to bring him into the room. I'm going to say I should be playing in front of him.
Dragging Didier Drogba into Jose.
Listen, Did he? Can I have a word of it? Come, let's go. And then I'll go, listen, Jose. I should be playing in front of him, yeah?
He's not
the last 2 games. That would actually be quite funny. But I think they'll just laugh me off and just get me on my way.
It's brilliant. I've never... it'd be interesting to know. But going back quickly to Liverpool and Salah in particular, Bridgie, does his name stand up there with the best now? With your own reason?
Anyway.
Yeah, I think it has to.
I think it's not even now, even before.
Yeah. Longevity.
Just the way he's in such good shape still, and players seem to know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
He's going to cut inside, he's going to curl it. He can go either way. The way he changes direction. Oh, he's brilliant, isn't he?
He's a record breaker, isn't he, now? So, come on. Deserves his flowers right now.
He does deserve his flowers.
And that's the way it is. No other way that you want to look at or paint that job. He is that man, innit?
Yeah.
He is the man, and look, you just got to respect and take your hat off to him. He's going to be a proper iconic figure.
For me, it's just crazy how they let him go.
He's a proper iconic figure already, though. Like, he's done. I think even if he leaves this at the end of the season, who can say anything?
He's up there with Stevie, with Kenny Dalglish.
He's got to be.
I know Scousers might. I don't know. Maybe they listen. Certain foreign signings, he's probably the best I've seen. I think. Incredible, and he's not letting up. He's still going.
He goes with 11 games remaining. Salah is just 6 goals contributions short of breaking the all-time single-season record, and only 3 behind the record for a 38-game season. But you see, look, one thing for me about goal contributions, right? Like, I know that it's a new thing that they add. Like, when did they start counting these goal contributions? Because there must have been players back in the day that was just doing it at will. But now it's being counted. You know what I'm trying to say? Because there never used to be a thing when I was growing up. I don't
remember goal contributions.
No one cared about the pass before the pass. Do you know what I mean? No one cared about... Sometimes the assist, if you weren't on the score sheet, no one cared. Like, you know what I mean? So, I see these records, they're just making up stuff as they go along sometimes.
I'm with you on that. It says here Liverpool surely can't let him go, but like surely he's just sitting there thinking, I'm going to do what I want. Does he want to have a couple of years in Paris? Does he want to go to Saudi?
Yes, we don't know what he wants to do, but you think
if he's on a free, anywhere in the world, surely 2-year contract at least.
Oh, anywhere.
Be great.
Do you reckon there's a chance he stays, though? Do you reckon they do everything they can to keep him, though?
I think there's every chance.
I mean,
you just think, why isn't it sorted yet? So then you start thinking, well, it's not going to happen, he's going to go.
Yeah.
I think there's a drum roll.
You think so?
There's a drum roll.
I think there's a drum roll, and then it's going to be all hunky-dory at the end of the season. They will have won the league, and it says, and we can announce our new signing.
Mo Salah.
Salah. It's got to be in it, surely.
I don't know how you replace him.
You can't. I tell you what, this leads me on to the next subject. Looking how to replace him, my mind goes straight to Saka. I say that because for Arsenal's defeat to West Ham, that is going to crush their title dreams. Arteta said his team deserved the pain.
Ooh.
So that's like...
Why? Why did they deserve the pain?
He's obviously upset.
I think the way they play... Not deserve it. It's probably just the way they played.
Yeah. They weren't good, were they?
No.
They weren't good.
Discipline-wise, just...
Did you find it strange, Bridgie? He brought off Declan Rice and Calafiori after 56 minutes.
Yeah, they obviously weren't performing.
Yeah.
So...
Declan never...
He's Mr. Consistent, isn't he?
Mr. Consistency.
The sending off obviously killed them. But like I said, I thought West Ham played really well.
Yeah.
The way they pressed them, got about them.
Yeah.
They looked really good. Who was the right back again?
Wan-Bissaka.
He looked good, bombing up and down.
Yeah. Wan-Bissaka looked
for the
fitter.
Goal. He looks fitter, doesn't he?
They all looks up for it. They were pressing. They were just at it.
I think, and they've got a sense of direction now. They've got a leader that's told them, this is what you do in this situation. That's what you do in this, and you make sure you attack it. And it's explained to them so nice and simple. Footballers don't need too much information.
They
just need a bit of direction on what to do in certain aspects, and then the rest will take over your talent.
But when I look at them where they were pressing, it's the way they went as a team.
Yeah, as a team.
Everyone in front of them going, they were getting backed up and just pressed really well. There was no space.
Yeah, they look youthful, didn't they?
Yeah, and I think if you can do that well, the way the game is at the moment, when people try and play around the back all the time. Rather than going long. Not that I like it, but when I see someone just clear the ball, I think that's good because where you don't do it, they don't do it enough now.
Sense of danger.
Try and play, and then there's a little mistake. There's not enough of it anymore.
Do you remember James Collins?
Yeah.
When he's cleared. Said to me, he's cleared one, smashed it into the rosette of the stand.
Yeah.
Someone's gone, play. He's gone, they can't score from up there.
They can't score there. He's always said that. Yeah. He's always said James Collins is a top man.
Always made me chuckle that. Sorry, Foley, I want to ask you quickly about the left back, Skulls. Yeah. He done particularly well for me.
Skulls, that's what I was going to
One of your guys?
No, look, Ollie Scars, I've coached him. I'm not saying that he's learned anything off me, but I just know that there's a load of people that's got a hand in his development. And look, he was one of those ones that was looking probably to go on loan if we weren't going to get no game time by January. But
really,
yeah, Graham Potter came in straight away and said, "We're keeping him. He's like hopefully the next in line to be one of our regular left backs in the future." So
yeah.
I already know that he's got it. Like he's a top boy, top player. He did start. Remember that game he started. Me and you covered it.
Yeah.
I think it was.
Yes.
They played. Was it in Russia or somewhere like that away in the European game? Yeah, I can't remember what game it was. And he started that game, and he was the best player on the pitch.
Yes.
He was the best player on the pitch, and he was only 16.
Wow.
Yeah, 16 at the time.
He played against Chelsea. He came on against Chelsea, didn't he?
Yeah, he came on, yeah.
And it's funny, him
and Lewis Orford.
Yes, who's another good footballer, another young good footballer at West Ham. But I'll see a player do one or two things.
Yeah.
And he done something, Scarves done, the ball's come out the sky, and he's received it with, like with the outside of his boot.
Yeah.
And left back and just on the half volley.
Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah, he's proper.
Show me, you're for me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, straight away.
There's always little moments like that, and he takes the ball.
It's the way we look at football. Like someone looking with their lens, and then we look at football totally different because we look at it in a different angle, a perspective, I should say.
Yeah.
And when you see certain skills that a player produces on the football pitch, you'll think, and it might be the most simplest thing.
Yeah.
Like a first touch.
Yeah.
No,
just the way he's taking it in, the way his body's gone soft knees and all that. You say, baller.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You do straight away. You can just see it. Like,
no.
And it's so. And there's not a lot of people that can see it. That's like a fan and everything because they're not looking at it like that. They're looking at it from another lens, which is quite. And talking about another young player for Arsenal, the young lad, Skelly.
Yeah.
Poor lad gets sent off.
Yeah. Second one this month.
You know what? That sending off. It was Kudus, wasn't it, who's closing him down?
Mate.
He put so much pressure on some of the Arsenal players at times.
Kudus was outstanding.
Who were aggressive, and it's like they thought it was just going to be easy. I'm just going to turn out here and do that, mate. The pressure they put on was good, mate.
Kudus stood up yesterday, and he was counted, and that's what we. Yeah, look, we've seen what he could do from last season. He was unplayable. He was scoring goals, running from the edge of his box all the way to the other side. We don't see that in the Premier League or in Europe as well. He was doing that as well. Yeah. So he's coming into his own. He's got a manager that's going to believe in him now again, and hopefully he can progress to the next level. But Skelly, for me, was it a sending off or not?
Yeah. It's sending off. It's sending off. Because the goalkeeper killed him.
Yeah.
The goalkeeper killed him. I think the ref's gone yellow card because it's on the halfway line.
Yeah.
But then VAR's gone to him. Have a look because the goalkeeper's in no man's land.
Yeah.
And even it was on Kudus' right foot, but he's got you'd expect the Premier League footballer with their weak foot to be able to kick the ball.
Yeah, true.
The goalkeeper can't do nothing. Yeah. So I think that was the reason. So I think they got it right. I feel for the kid, and I do like the kid.
There's struggles, though. They're struggling attacking-wise as well. They're not creating any chances, Arsenal. Which is a bit worrying. And you ain't got well, you say striker, but you got to create for the striker, surely. Like, even if there's not a striker there, the creation's still got to be there at least. Someone's just not finishing it off. But they didn't look like they was going to create anything. Like, it was a bit weird. That's a weird Arsenal performance for me. Like,
flat.
West Ham were brilliant, don't get me wrong. But Arsenal, with all the money they spend and everything that they are, I was expecting a load more. And they're chasing the title as well.
Yeah.
I think when you win the title, when you're up there, I remember being at Chelsea, it's like when you don't play so well but you grind out a result. Liverpool have done that well.
Yeah.
This year. They might not have played the best, but they've got a result.
They've got a result.
Arsenal don't seem to do that.
No. They don't do it as well as...
No.
And they're not playing like...
If they're not on it, they don't seem to grind out a result.
No, they don't. And
what is that? What is that missing? Was it the steel? Is it the heart?
I think it's a little... I don't know if it's... I think it's a little bit of nous. Like, it's a little bit of... You know, and variety, like, because teams, West Ham would dropping off into a low block at times. Arsenal were going wide and wide, where it would usually go to Saka, and he had that one-on-one power there, and Martinelli on the other side. That wasn't there, so they wasn't getting on the outside, and they couldn't have the ability to clip one into the centre forward because there's no one there.
No one there.
So I think no variety, no nous, not no nous, that's unfair. Lack of. That's the next bit Arsenal need to get to if they're going to do it. But
we say that. But say that as well, yeah. Are they going to do it? like ever. Wasn't this year the year?
Yeah.
And we can talk about injuries. We can talk about not having a good rhythm at the moment because they haven't got rhythm. But when you spend that much, you need to give the fans something positive to speak about. Like, we're getting closer. So they got close to the title twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still no cigar. Yeah.
Yeah.
This year, you're expecting, well, Man City's not here. We've got to actually go out and make sure that we stamp out. But Liverpool's just come and taken their seat.
Yeah.
That's what it looks to me. Liverpool just came from nowhere and said, you're not taking that seat, I'll sit there, thanks.
They're emotional as well, the Arsenal fans at the moment, aren't they?
I love seeing them emotional, though.
How long does Arteta have to go without having any silverware?
I have a word, right? Because I listened to TalkSport on the way in, and the amount of Arsenal fans calling for Arteta's head, I'm like,
are they?
We're not there. Yeah, it's a few.
See, I'm not. See, I haven't even listened to that. I'm just going off.
You're just going what I
think, what they might be thinking, because
that's proper
another
emotional.
title blow. Like,
Guys,
come on, man. Like,
guys,
this is the year that you're supposed to do it. Man City are nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, Man City.
Can't use Man City as a cushion to say, oh well, we can't. Man City are nowhere to be seen. Now it's Liverpool. They've just come and taken your seat now.
Right.
So you just need to kind of look at that. Is this acceptable?
It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable.
Anyway, yeah.
Should we stay in North London?
West Ham won. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
Bosh.
It's done, isn't it? It's done. It's over. It's Liverpool's.
Should we first of all? Should we stay in North London then? Let's stay at Spurs. 4-1 victory over Ipswich. Postecoglou makes a comeback. 3 Premier League wins on the bounce. Spurs dominant win. Now, I don't think that was the case. It was a 4-1 win. But it wasn't
dominant.
It wasn't dominant. Ipswich was still in it, you know what I mean? Brennan Johnson coming, he scored 2. Son got another 2 assists. Ruthless finishing from Speds and Kulusevski.
Yeah.
It's a step in the right direction.
It's a step in the right direction.
Do you know what I mean? It's where they've been.
Yeah.
I like the story about Jed Spence, by the way, as well.
Yeah.
They've given him time. He went out on loan. Didn't really pull up any trees on loan either.
Yeah.
He's come back into the fold and he's got his head down and he's making a good go of it. So well done to Jed.
Yeah.
Really, really happy for him. But yeah, for the Spurs situation, they had to win this game. Come on, 4-1. Like, if you're not winning this, then you're just throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
And they have 4 games in the past.
They've got a favourable draw in the Europa League as well, like a route. So
players coming back from injuries.
I still think there could be a happy ending for the season for Spurs, but I don't think that's the story with Spurs, because I just want to bring this to your attention, right? Tottenham's branding shift. If you've got an irate fan base that's already on the verge of not on the verge of turning. They're turning. They've gone. They don't like Daniel Levy. They're frustrated.
They're protesting,
and then you send out this nonsense to the
I saw this.
Broadcasters.
Yeah.
Only wanted to refer them as Tottenham Hotspur or Spurs, avoiding Tottenham alone. The club has removed Tottenham Hotspur from its crest, favouring a simplified design featuring a cockerel. Look, this is just stinks of like these marketing people that have come out of university and gone, right, what works with branding? Right, London, we want to be associated with London, because that's cool. We don't want to be associated with Tottenham because it ain't Mayfair. It's not in fairness. Like,
it's
I'm from
North
London.
Though.
It's actually condescending to the people of Tottenham.
Yeah.
And I think the
Tottenham trying to detach away from the area.
Listen, I'm going to call it White Hart Lane.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to call it.
I'm calling them Tottenham.
I'm calling them Tottenham now.
3 Point Lane. That's probably why they want to do it.
No, but like, England legend Stuart Pearce has criticised the moves as unnecessary and poorly timed. I think he's right, Pearce.
It is unnecessary.
Absolutely
unnecessary, and it's definitely poorly timed.
What's the point?
Like, you go through such a bad spell. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? This is not the time for this.
What are you thinking?
Oh, mate.
That's how you know they don't have their feelers out.
Yeah.
See, like, football clubs, please, just listen to me.
Yeah.
Everything has its time. Yeah. There's sometimes you just don't have to do it.
Yeah.
If you planned it at the start of the season, it was going to be at this date.
Yeah.
Fill the room a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it's not the right time to do this, but because they got four games on the bounce now. They're looking all right. They're thinking, now's the time because we're desperate to get this out. You know what I mean? So that's probably what they're thinking right now. They've done 4 games on a row with no losses. They're all right.
Yeah, listen, imagine you're a lifelong Tottenham fan.
Yeah.
You live in Tottenham, and this is just
your club's trying to detach itself away from your area.
Detach it from your area. Clubs, it's about community. Clubs, clubs has always been about, the people, the fans.
Yeah.
Do we not forget about COVID when there was no fans in the crowd? How rubbish it was.
Yeah.
We tried our best in the broadcasting world to make out there. I was at games. I was very lucky to do it because it was all locked away. But me watching the game with an ham sandwich and no one around me, Premier League game.
A Premier League game.
I was like, it was like going to watch park football.
Yeah,
fans
basically.
make it, and you
a bit better than park football games with the whole big stadium. But watching the vets.
Yeah, it's like
there's no one in the.
There was the passion was taken out of it, and I thought to myself, at least the executives, the board members, and the owners who own these clubs, would be a little reminder of where the heart and the soul of football is. So.
It's corporate, man. That's corporate now. It's corporate business.
It's just stupid. It's just simply stupid.
Franchising. Franchise. That's all they're doing, franchising, trying to make it...
Mate, it's like, people ain't that stupid. Like, we're going to, Anyway.
But the focus is definitely misplaced at the moment, innit? So they just need to fill the room. It's not the right time. But that's their club, innit? Let them crack on.
Exactly. But I still think... For Tottenham fans, I still think there might be a run in the Europa League. Like Bridgie said, the players coming back will be massive. And at the start of the season, there was talk of them pushing Champions League. So I still think there's an option there to get up. Right, where should we go now, chaps? I mean,
Chelsea.
Let's go. Yeah, should we go Chelsea?
Chelsea.
It's another one, mate. It's another club where. What did you think? What did you make of it?
It's keeper, isn't it?
It's
just such a bad mistake. It's just a bad mistake, isn't it? It's one of the worst positions ever.
Yeah,
but they've had
one little mistake.
Reggie,
they've been struggling with keepers. Like my son's a goalkeeper, and honestly, I get so nervous watching it. It's just one little mistake and it goes in.
Does it affect him if he makes a mistake?
It used to. He's got better.
He
has got better.
How'd you?
I'm more nervous watching him than I was ever playing.
Really?
Yeah, especially as a goalie.
Yeah.
Do you remember? That must dent a goalie's confidence so much. But they've been struggling, haven't they?
In that keeper department, they definitely have. Since Peter Cech. Since Peter Cech.
No, they had Courtois.
Courtois, sorry. Yeah. Since Courtois, there's just not been the same. They've not had a settled goalkeeper. They've tried Mendy for big dough as well.
Yeah.
Kepa came in. He's arguing with the gaffer on the FA Cup final. FA Cup final.
League Cup final,
Yeah, League Cup final. Coming off. There's been no law and order there. They need to get some kind of form of goalkeeper. There's loads of goalkeepers in Europe. You go into Europe, you could go and get a great... he might not be in the top leagues.
Yeah.
You could try and source it out. I don't know how goalkeepers... I've talked to Xavi Valero down at West Ham.
Right.
And their system is so different to our first teams on how they select. Even their loans are different. The goalkeepers.
Right.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
It's totally a different world. Yeah, and I just want, for a club like Chelsea to have the system that they're getting the best goalkeepers. I don't think you can do the money ball system with goalkeepers. I think you just need one steady goalkeeper that's going to just turn out performances and lead your team. Keepers are now focused on how to play out from the back. Remember the goalkeepers like a Schmeichel, they were always domineering. There was always, I'm not going to make a mistake in front of him. So I'm going to... assured. Are these goalkeepers sending that message to the centre-halves now, or their right-back or their left-back? How are they good at communicating? When I look at Chelsea, I don't think they've had that since Courtois. I don't think they have it.
It's obviously something, like you said, it's something systemically wrong because you can't have 9 goalkeepers on your book and not know which one's your number one. You've got 2 out. You've got Kepa out on loan, Petrovic out on loan. There's you brought some young, promising ones. If your system works well, you shouldn't make as many mistakes that have been made with goalkeepers. I think it's actually...
What's the scouting like? I don't get... What are they looking for in a goalkeeper? That's the one thing you got to always go for. What are they looking for? Is it domineering? Is it a good attitude? Is it just a shot stopper?
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own thing. Or is it playing out from the back? Got good ball retention.
Yeah.
I don't know what they want. So, and it's looking like that they don't know what they want. judging by the keeper that they employ.
Do you know I think one of the best goalies in the league at the moment? Sells from Forest.
Yeah.
Mate.
Is he top, yeah?
Watch him play. Assured, make saves.
Well, made some great saves.
I don't know whether he's having a golden period in his time, but they are out there. You just got to pick the right one.
Also, the Chelsea didn't exactly play great either.
No.
You know what I mean, with what was in front of him, but it was a bad mistake. It's good to see Rashford.
Yeah.
I said to him, he's got so much ability.
Yeah.
He
looks
like he's on it now.
He does, doesn't he?
Yeah. What I liked about him is the way he was running at people, real positive, but then he wasn't greedy with it. Sometimes he passed at the right time.
Not making about him.
Well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm glad he's done well, and I think Villa could kick on. That's a massive win for Villa when you think about it. You know, to go and Marco Asensio scored twice in the second half, and both their signings in January. It's not often you see that from a club. They go right, bang, bang, January, and it just lifts the whole place.
Yeah,
they got the Champions League.
Who's got the best out of Marcus? Everyone was writing him off.
Yeah,
he's getting the best out of him. He's bringing something to the table.
Yeah,
tell when you hear the manager talk though. Like I reckon he's put an arm round him maybe and just like
listen, don't
wants to get the best out of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and
they probably feel better about themselves. Different challenge.
Definitely. I'm looking at that.
Mentally.
And that's all we need sometimes. A little arm around us saying we're doing the right thing. Or, oh, you've had a bad time over there. Come with us. We'll sort you out. That's all you need.
Cole, who in your career, as a striker, we all know strikers need a little bit more love.
Yeah.
Who give you the love?
Zola was
just made you feel brand new.
Zola, because remember I had Zola and Steve Clark. Steve Clark was my youth team manager when he came to West Ham. When he came to West Ham, he was already my youth team manager when I was at Chelsea. And Zola I played up front with, and he knew, like when me and him were playing up front together, he knew what I liked. Do you know what I mean? So we had a good combination. And I made my starting debut with Franco. Do you know what I mean? So I knew once he walked in them doors, I was the buffs in business. Because I'd already started to gain momentum under Kerbishley. And then when Kerbishley left, then I knew I had a striker as my... What can't you learn? Do you know what I mean? And if he puts the belief and power into you, he made me feel like I was the best player on the pitch. I weren't, but I felt like that. And it doesn't matter what anybody else told me. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm definitely... I'm like going to be the best on the pitch. Every time I go out on this pitch, I'm the best. That's how I felt. And that's all a striker needs sometimes. Might not be the best player, but he's going to bang goals. And that's what I'm there for. Or I'm there to hold the ball up and bring others into play. Whatever you're using, just make that player feel great about himself.
Yeah. Who's that with you, Bridgie? Any managers?
Probably the one who stands out most for me is probably Dave Jones when I first started.
Yeah.
Because he just believed in me.
Right.
I remember him saying, I'll end up playing for England one day because he moved me to left back,
Yeah.
And he said I'd end up playing for England.
Is it?
But probably the most positive would have been Glenn Hoddle.
Yeah.
Glenn Hoddle,
He kind of ended up making that left back spot my own. And it was just so ahead of his time. Like the mental side of the game, he had me doing visualisation techniques and stuff.
Yeah.
He brought someone in so far ahead of his time that players just weren't having none of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if some of the best players in the world, it's probably who people don't know they would be doing stuff like that, work on the mental side, the visualisation. I know Didier Drogba did it. It'd probably be him, and I see him not long ago actually, because I started doing some work with a life coach, started doing a bit more meditating again, and it reminded me of back in the day with Glenn Hoddle, when I ended up bumping into him and he was talking about the mind and what it does for the body and everything like that. So he was really good for me.
He was streets ahead of his time. I work with Glenn, and it's always like an education when you work with him. I
saw you working with him, and I was because we talked about Glenn before. I remember you was going to work with him that day, and I was like, he's going to say I saw Bridgie. Bridgie speaks highly of you.
Yeah, mate, honestly, he had at Southampton, he had us in 6th position, I think, when he left. I mean, we were never really that high. We were playing some unbelievable football, playing the formation of... When Mourinho came along, remember we started playing 4-3-3?
Yeah.
Not a lot of teams are doing that.
No.
We were playing that at Southampton.
Really?
Yeah, we played that at Southampton.
Where did you play, left back or left
I played left back. And then he had me just bombing on, so midfield in front of his.
I think I remember.
He's ahead of his time, man. You're right. Because no one was playing like that.
Well.
No one was playing like that.
You beat us at Upton Park and you battered us. And I think you played that, but yeah.
But Mourinho gets like the plaudits for it because he done it and won the league with it. Do you know what I mean? So that he gets he changed the face of the.
Do you know what it's, Coley? It's these rebranding people that come. People. Like
PR.
Klopp rebranded pressing. The Gengen press was going like what's shutting down? Yeah, that's what, you know what I mean. Yeah. So you get these people, they put a new name on it, and they think they've invented.
Shutting down. Just get. You know what I mean? Come on, just put a new name on it, and there's a new spin. And say, this is the future of football. Yeah.
I know.
Mate, it's been done. There's no style of football that's never been done.
Exactly.
Like even the Pep era. This style of football happened back in the day. It just wasn't recorded.
Yeah,
it weren't recorded. Like just because there was no. It's not what we've got on our. There's no digital. It wasn't a digital era back then, so you would not see how they played unless you saw video. Do you know what I mean? And can't even have a video over them.
Right, chaps. The early kickoff, Man United, Everton, VAR delays. Ashley Young dive. I mean, it was a strange game, wasn't it? It was a strange game. What did you make of it, Coley?
I didn't see it.
Good answer.
I didn't see it. Look, I was busy concentrating on other things at that time, but. What I would say is obviously Ashley Young, he's been known for diving before.
Wow, calling out Youngie, yeah?
He has. I think there was an important game last year, I think, and it was forever. And it was one of the teams right at the bottom struggling for points.
Right.
And I think he dived in that game and he actually got a penalty, you know? And I felt sorry for the other team. But he did, so he's known for it. But I'm not saying he has in this one because I haven't seen it. So he's got previous. So Dive and Ashley Young, those two coupled together, those names coupled together, I kind of think he might have.
Okay, it was 39.
And when I see him, I'll tell him to his face.
He does dive a lot. But it's a penalty. It's a penalty. He's pulled his shirt and pulled back a little bit. He's made a meal of it.
Yeah.
I said it before. Like, if pulling a shirt and what happened to him would have put him off his stride and where he was going. He's made a meal of it.
Yeah.
But book him for diving, but give the penalty as well.
Did you ever give any penalties away in your career? Because you was very
why you got to bring this up?
No. I just remember you.
Oh, mate.
Only one.
Bring this up to me all the time.
Every day.
Only Tottenham won something, mate. Don't need it bringing up again.
There must have been only one, because for fullbacks...
Yeah. No,
the only reason...
My West Ham debut, bringing up all my best memories, Joe.
But you must have played 500 games.
You're the one you're triggering him right now.
Sorry,
he's traumatised.
But how would you defend now with VAR? Would that have affected you?
So you can't get... we spoke about it before. You cannot get away with anything, really, can you?
Yeah.
I mean, the little things you used to get away with, little tugs in or little things off the ball. Just, it's very, very hard. You know, you make a challenge now.
Yeah.
And I feel like some of these challenges aren't really that bad. And when you watch them in slow-mo...
Oh.
Yes,
it can look a lot worse.
It looks way worse. In real time, it's like...
Who was it? There was someone this week, and I can't remember who it was for, but they've gone to tackle and his foot's hit the ball and bounced up and caught the guy right near the shin or around the ankle. But it wasn't a bad tackle.
Yeah.
It's not actually that bad. And I can't remember if it got put to a sending off or not. It might have been that one, but... It's when you're watching it in slow motion, it looks a lot worse. But I'll be looking at that on VAR and going...
I think you're talking about Skelly again. He got sent off and it looked like he went over, but he didn't. And it wasn't, and he got rescinded in the end.
Yeah, it was... No, it was this weekend. I'm sure it was this weekend, yeah. And it wasn't actually that bad. His foot's just... He's gone for the ball, but his foot's hit the ball and it's bounced up.
So this goes back to the question, does a footballer need to be in the VAR room when they're making decisions? Does an ex-pro, do you think that will help?
I think it will help.
I'd like to think it will.
It'll help with that. Exactly what Bridgie's saying. In this, when you slow it down, it always. And I go back to when I played. I remember I won a penalty against Arsenal, Lauren, right? And I've just wriggled away, nicked it, and I've gone over. He's clipped me, right? But I swear to God, he got in my face. There's a bit of a thing. He got booked, penalty. And I'm like, you know, when you got up, I'm thinking, these will think I've dived. But I've definitely not dived.
I would put it past you.
I definitely not dived. And I was like going home, because the cameras weren't as good as they were back then. I was looking at it going, wow, that does look like I've dived.
You doubt yourself.
I'm doubting myself. I know I didn't. And there's this one angle where it was like, my whole foot, because I was running, I was just on my toes, and it just rolled my ankle like that, and he clipped me. But I was like, yes.
You know, it was like back when we were taking corners and stuff, there's always a little bit of pulling, a little bit of pushing. Like, now I'd just be like, no, you can't do none of that.
Can't do that.
And if I was a winger now, like, say if I was like when I used to come against Aaron Lennon or Sean or even you, if I was you guys, I'd be thinking, right, get at this fullback. Because you can get him sent off this game.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be so careful.
Yeah. There's nothing good. If you was playing winger and my fullback got a yellow card in the first 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, no.
Bomb on.
You know that affects the way that they play. Yeah.
Well, that is
a lot.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. So when you do, because now you can't get away with anything in football. I just feel that there might need that footballer touch in there now.
I do. I think it's
just to help them like understand. Okay, that can happen in the game. And when we talk about what you're saying, you can't really get physical in the box as well, Bridgie. Like, I get it, because back in the day, people used to be having their arm around my whole waist, and I'm trying to move away.
Yeah.
I swear one time someone had me in a headlock. Like, so it just shows you that it's more to do with just cleaning the game a little bit, because
the game's changed so much.
The game's changed. It is a different game to what we were playing back in the day, but I just feel that you don't know whether a dive is a dive, but you'll see from the player's reaction how it looks. Because if they just go on the floor and go like that and laugh, then I know he's definitely dived. It's a player reaction, and I think that's where the referees go off as well. They go on the players' reactions.
But with the shirt pull, you think Youngie would have maybe gone backwards a little bit. Instead, he's like flung himself forward. Like he's doing a belly flop in the ball.
That's why they say it's a dive.
By the way, but
that's why they say it's a dive.
It's a dive, but it's a penalty.
But it's a penalty because he's touched
pulled his shirt. I tell you, he was good for Everton though. Beto, he's been on fire.
Yeah, he has been. It was just.
Oh, he's been good. Yeah.
Is it four or five goals?
Fifth in 4 Premier League games.
You know, Geezer looked like he couldn't hit a
barn door.
And now
I've had that said about me before. So I know that quote.
Doing well,
again,
mate.
it goes back to
confidence.
David Moyes has found a way to get into Beto's head that's given him the confidence.
It's good. He looks like a David Moyes player as well. He looks like David Moyes will love he loves a big, strong striker lad. Andy Carroll. I didn't have me. Sam Allardyce would have loved that type of ilk manager.
Fellaini.
So he needs a Fellaini. You know what I mean? Those type of strikers, and you can see that he's gonna thrive. Thrive of a player like that in this team. You can just play off him. He's running. He's causing the two defenders mayhem. Like they're not having any rest. So Beto, I love this new lease of life, and he deserves it, man. Because you know sometimes with strikers, when it's just not working for you and you're just feeling low, and then when I'm gonna catch a break, you know what I mean? And we're at the bottom of the league, and these lot are expected. And on top of that, he's doing all the other things to be all-rounded. We never knew he had this in the locker.
Nah, it shocked me because it's great.
It's like Mateta as well. Over at Palace.
Mateta, mate. He didn't look like a footballer, did he?
He looks like prime R9.
Yeah, like doing things. I'm like, wow. Obviously, Mateta doesn't. Aesthetically, I think his body shape is. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's like a triangle.
Yeah. I'm like, he don't move. He gets the job done. He's a good footballer, and the manager's getting the best out of him. Just quickly going on to Moyes criticised the VAR decision, arguing the jersey pulling should be punished, while Ruben Amorim admitted his team didn't exist in the first half.
I don't know if they had a shot. I don't know if they had a shot.
Ruben Amorim.
Why is he so harsh with his words on the team? Like, he's always saying something.
Didn't
exist. What can he say, though?
No, that's
been so bad. What can he actually say?
Didn't exist.
Didn't exist. Non-existent.
Oh, my God.
Man.
It's just bad there, isn't it, for him? Everything going on there.
Again, and we look. I feel like I'm the. I feel like I'm the bearer of bad news here when a couple of things like job cuts looming at Manchester United. employees are bracing for another wave of job cuts. We've actually 200 positions, 250 staff, blah, 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 redundant, financial troubles, cost cutting. Now, the thing is, right,
15 million debt.
Yeah, listen.
With another 414 million owed for players' transfers.
Owed, mate.
Wow.
Why are they owing anybody? Manchester United.
They've got concerns over scouting and transfers. I could have told you that. My God, it's not going well, is it?
You don't need a big rundown on it there. But going back to like you know, when you talk about the heart and soul of a club, right? And you think the FA relocating. What these big businesses will come in. They'll chop the fat off all the business. They'll look in and go, we can save there, we can save there, we can save there. Then they rebuild it up from that and try and make it workable, right? Mm-hmm. But there's no football people in the room or people from Manchester who go relocating the FA Youth Cup match to save $8,000. They probably spend $8,000 on baked beans in a month for the, the FA Youth Cup is the FA Youth Cup is a prestigious. It's a rite of passage for a young footballer. And at Manchester United, you think back to the Busby Babes, and you think back to Fergie's fledglings and all them boys, the class of '92. They all started with FA Youth Cups, and it means so much in this country. And it's just similar to the Tottenham situation. Just have someone in the room who can speak to the people and tell them directly and say, no, listen, we can maybe cut here. I mean, what do you think?
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, but they've just. I think with the transfers and everything and certain players they signed and it's not worked out well for them, but there's been a lot of them. So it ain't helped with this situation at all, is it?
No, it's not helped.
It costs so much to sign a player now. The wages are massive. Yeah. You know what I mean? You've got to spend so much money to get a decent player these days.
I know.
Unless your recruitment is that good. And obviously their recruitment don't seem to be.
Well, hasn't Anthony gone on loan to Betis and he's getting man of the matches and goals and sometimes there's a structural thing at the club that's not working. And it's this thing as well.
No, but when you talk about that, job cuts though.
Yeah.
200 positions expected.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know how hard that is?
Do you reckon the players feel that?
The players must feel that. I remember.
I remember feeling
it's the manager getting the sack, and I feel it.
Yeah.
Like you feel bad because it does come down to you at the end of the day and how you're performing, doesn't it?
I remember.
But they've already had 250 job cuts already.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen,
they've already had job cuts already.
Alex,
and the next one is 200 position to be expected to be eliminated too. So that's like Manchester United. Although it's a massive club, it's still the core is still a family club because of what they've been through with their history and everything. That's their life source.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Busby Babes, where they had to come from to get back on top. That whole story is amazing. Now, it's a people's club.
Yeah.
Yeah? Well, it doesn't matter how big it is, it's still a people's club. Now, when you're chopping these, that's going to be it's nearly going to be 450 people that they're job cutting. And now these people are they're definitely local people. You're just ruining someone's livelihood. They love the club.
That's their identity as well.
That's your identity. Keep them in a job. It's not going to make a massive difference, I don't think, to whatever wage structure they want to imply.
How about you?
It happens at a lot of clubs, getting rid of people. Because I remember going back to Southampton and it was the park and attendant, people that worked in the ticket office, kit man that had been there years, the wash ladies. And I remember they'd all gone. None of them wanted to go.
Yeah,
they've all gone.
But I don't get.
I remember going back to West Ham. A couple of years ago. They're all the same, a lot of the same faces there.
We really believe in it.
There. They love the club, love being there every weekend.
It's important, mate.
They make the club, don't they? As a player, you get to know all them and.
It's the identity. It's the identity. You get to know everyone, the secretary, everybody, and then. If they want to leave, it will be on their own accord.
Yeah.
Or they're just not doing a good job, so they get the tic-tac.
Yeah.
But it ain't going to be because we're trying to save a little bit of money here and there. Because your job really is the most important ones. The smaller jobs are actually the things, that's the foundation of a football club. Smaller jobs, the little...
Yeah.
If you're trying to get rid of that, then there's something really seriously wrong with your...
do you know what I would do?
Being a human.
Do you know what I'd do? Do you know what I'd do if I was manager? If I was Ruben Amorim, he probably ain't got time to do this. He's probably his head's on on a swivel. He's spinning. He's got so many things going on at the moment. His team didn't exist in the first half. So, but like, you know what? I think at the bottom of it all, the culture of the club. You have to get the playing squad to go, like, listen, see these people, see Betty in the cafeteria, Fred over his boat, he's been here 30 years, he's done this, he's done that, right? You're playing for yourselves, you're playing for us as a group, but you're playing for everyone around you. Do you know what I mean? We all doing this together, and you just got every time I've played in a successful team, we've played in successful teams, I've played in teams that are not successful, and it's always that togetherness that keeps you there. And I think these businesses, they don't understand, or maybe they do understand, they don't care, I don't know. Yeah. But they're not doing the right thing. Just Tottenham and Manchester United, you know, and also I'd have to say a little bit Chelsea, because there's a protest going on at Chelsea on Tuesday night where the fans are unhappy with certain things, ticket prices and certain things in and around the club. But it needs to be addressed. It does.
When you say togetherness, that stands out massively, though, because when you look at United, you don't look at them and think they've got a togetherness, do you? No. And I think sometimes, when you brought Chelsea up, sometimes I've watched some of the games they play and I think they don't seem like they've got that togetherness and fight. Yeah.
And that comes from that. That has
to come from the manager as well, making sure.
It comes from that comes from the manager, but it comes from what the environment is. Yeah. So when you go into training every day, when you see all these regular people that you've always been accustomed to, they've introduced you to, and then you're just seeing them losing their jobs. That must be hard. Yeah, it is. It affects you. It is, because they make your life as a footballer comfortable.
I remember when we got relegated at West Ham, and I was captain. I was 21, and the 6 weeks leading up to it, we went on a run. We won 4 out of the last 6, and we nearly did it. We got 42 points. We got relegated, but I couldn't look people. I felt all of the weight on my shoulders.
Oh, it's horrible.
And I was like,
West Ham.
I knew people would lose jobs, because you speak to people and you hear little conversations going on. I was like, and it was like the worst 6 weeks of my life. And then when it finally happened, we got relegated. I was like, I couldn't even face any. The season was over, and I didn't want to leave my house cold. I was like, because I was living in Essex at the time. And because you take it on board, but
that's what happened when we went down with West Ham. I knew, because obviously what was going on, because I was friends with the kit man, friends with the lady, friends with the chef, and they would tell me exactly what's happening and who had to leave, and I'm like, it's the worst thing in the world, man. I didn't even know this. I didn't think that they would actually be cutting their jobs because of my failure. Yeah, it's not nice, man. Yeah,
It's worse when you're in that team that's fighting for that relegation, and you've got players that have got so much ability,
and
but they ain't got that fight. They just don't bother. They haven't got that fight to run around and really put it in a fight.
Yeah, don't care.
Which is what you need when you're down there.
And ultimately, like, if you could say to any young players listening to this, right, it's great. All of the things you get out of football, the financial stuff, and, the plaudits and everything. But the best thing I remember being in my career is when you just, like, that feeling of when you've won a game and you come back in the dressing room. There's nothing better than that.
Nothing better than that.
Do you know what I mean?
Elation.
Even when I was playing in teams that were struggling and we losing, there's that one win would keep you coming back for it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And what that means to everyone there. Yeah. But
Ferguson, on that note as well, a legend at Manchester United. I know we're talking about Manchester United, but they're going about their business, and probably some will say in the wrong way, some will say in the right way, But Sir Alex Ferguson's ambassadorial contract, worth $2.5 million per year, will not be extended, highlighting the club's move away from its history and the era of its most successful manager. That is that's a statement.
That's a statement. I put that separately to the job cuts of the people. That's why separately, you got to separate that, because for me, Sir Alex Ferguson is a legend of the game in Manchester United. But there comes a point where you can't be paying someone £2.5 million a year. The only way I can think of it is listen, he would leave Manchester United, he'll get speaking gigs and engagements, and he'll have a successful
still be around
career.
The club, surely.
Yeah, I think that's like hush money. That's what I'm saying. No, because if Ferguson walks out of Old Trafford, right, and they don't give him anything,
he's got to have something. He'd be there. He'd still be there.
He's got to have something. But it's a lot of money, and if anyone deserves it, it's him because of what he's achieved. But there has to come a point where you have to walk away and go, right, like, thank you, enough's enough. Your money, you know, that I can understand that.
2.5 million.
2.5 million is a lot of money for an ambassador job.
Ambassadorial
like
role.
Ambassador West Ham?
Oh, mate, full time.
Man would be rolling around with his...
I wouldn't be here.
I'd take it, like.
The ambassador.
Yeah.
Bro, just the ambassador.
He'd still be around the club, wouldn't he? He just won't be doing as much, will he?
Mr. Ambassador. No, listen, I think it's even a job he'll do for free, man. Like, he loves the club, doesn't he? That's his heart and soul. You know what I mean? That's his heartbeat. That's his baby. You know,
so everything there is just going to get analysed so much now because of the position they're in.
Yeah. And I think it's a travesty. That they're actually bringing it up.
Yeah.
That's a private conversation. Why are you worried? Why do we need to know how much he was on? He can have what he wants, what he's done for football in this game. So they just need to keep some of their movements just under low key. Someone's hating on them, and it's getting out. So just keep your ship tight and just make sure that these little things that you want to do don't get out, man. Just got to be better.
Before we finish, you're right, Coley. Bang on. Before we finish up, we'll just have a quick jolly up to the north of the border. Rangers have sacked their manager. I'm doing this for, you know, Philippe Clement struggled with consistency, significant points, blah, blah, blah. Mate, where do they go, Rangers, now? I mean, I'm going to throw a name in there.
No.
He's our guy, Ashley Cole. I'm going to throw him in because...
Yeah.
Ashley, I know he's got a job, he's working in England under 21s, but why is Rangers... They had such a great spell with Stevie G, another ex-England legend. I can see Coley going into that job.
Yeah, Coley's he's up for it as well, isn't he?
Listen, I think he's...
You can see the dedication he's put into becoming a coach.
Yeah.
And
he's
someone's got to give him a
soul.
chance at some point.
Someone will give him a chance. You just got to apply, you know?
Yeah.
Like Wayne Rooney's had how many chances now?
Yeah.
He was a great player, obviously, one of the best, but also, like, he knows football.
Yeah, he does.
He always read the game well. He'd be able to help people all over.
Yeah. Mate, I work with him.
And his communication's got better as well.
It has. And I work with him doing a bit of media in a foreign country. And we had an afternoon off, and we're sitting on the sunbeds, lounges, ordered a couple of drinks, like thinking, this is a good gig, Coley. I'm enjoying myself.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, right, I'm just watching the world go by.
Yeah.
90 degrees.
Yeah.
And he just gets out his laptop and he's showing me throw-ins. I was like, the dedication. Honestly.
He gets the huddle out. And
if someone's doing that
dedication
on a holiday,
to football,
then you know, like, they're worth in.
I'll have another Aperol Spritz.
What's he doing?
Mate.
Come on.
No.
Put the ball away, Ash.
Man. He loves the game.
We love him.
I love him.
We're gonna get him on.
Yeah.
But I mean, that would be perfect for him. That
might have chucked his name in the hat there, Joe.
Might as well. Listen, get this out there.
Get a phone call tomorrow.
Ashley Cole to Rangers. Let's get the odds.
Let's get the odds. Get the prices down.
Let's get the prices down.
Quick move to Saudi before we go as well. Laurent Blanc's side secured a commanding 4-1 win in the Saudi Classico.
Yeah.
Moving 7 points clear at the top of the Saudi Pro League. And a late comeback saw Al Ettifaq defeat Cristiano Ronaldo's team 3-2 with Gerrans sent off.
I saw that. So Cristiano, right? Being Cristiano, he's he now? 40?
Mate,
he's 40 years old, 39, whatever he is, yeah? He's still throwing strops.
Is he really?
So Duran,
we all hate losing.
Mate, I know, but bro, like you get to a certain age when it shouldn't really be. I've seen this before. Why am I still getting so involved emotionally when I see the ball and I blast it into Rose End, into the crowd? Like who does that? He's so angry with the referee. He goes, he just kicks the ball into the crowd. I'm like, bro, just come on, man. Like we've seen, you've done this before. Like you've been here before, have you? You're Cristiano. You're still doing that. Anyway, but he's just a winner, innit? Like, he can't. And I think it was an unjust sending off.
Play swing ball with my kids. You know what I mean? It's like we all hate losing.
John Durant got sent off. Like, it was obviously in the final minutes as well, because everything collapsed in the final minutes for him, and he just felt, this is my one chance. That's why I love that guy. He's gone to another league. Yeah. He's played. Listen, this guy's played every type of football in his life. Yeah. Top goal scorer in the world. Yeah. He's gone to Saudi League and he's like embracing the culture. Yeah. Still got that winning mentality. Yeah. And that's why I can't relate to him. Because I'm looking at him, I said, why are you so upset, bro? You're 5 million a week.
I totally get your point.
Chill out, bro.
I get your point.
I think that's a lovely way to end it. Thank you for listening to The Dressing Room with our Arabiya News, and we'll see you next week.
From the White House to Gaza, Kyiv to Beijing, elections, economics and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deep fake and artificial intelligence,
they've got to have a vote and a say.
It's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
my campaign is going very well.
Presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers.
As Arabs, as Middle Eastern, we're too emotional.
Join me on The Rizkan Show for empowering conversation.
Hello and welcome to Global News Today, bringing you exclusive interviews with leading experts every weekday here on Arabiya News. I'm Tom Burges Watson. Coming up on today's programme, with President Trump and Elon Musk zeroing in on productivity and cost-cutting, US aid contracts are slashed by 92%, meaning that $60 billion of savings have been calculated. Coming up, we'll be asking the actual Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, what he thinks of the new administration in Washington. Tomorrow, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is expected at the White House to sign a minerals deal. Coming up, we'll be asking the former US National Security Advisor John Bolton what he makes of this. The British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer is the latest world leader to meet the President of the United States to discuss the war in Ukraine. He's going to be appealing for a US backstop to any eventual ceasefire agreement. Hello and welcome to the programme. We're going to begin today's show with the latest from the United States, with efforts by the cost-cutting duo, and I'm talking about the US President Donald Trump and Elon Musk, who's now dubbed the downsizing czar. Well, in a bid to trim US government expenditure, they're pushing hard to meet budget targets, ordering wave after wave of layoffs and cuts. Meanwhile, Elon Musk has raised alarms over a major flaw in government transactions. Well, in just a moment, we're going to be speaking to Wall Street's original wolf, Jordan Belfort, the inspiration behind the film The Wolf of Wall Street, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Well, Belfort, who's known for building one of the largest investment firms on Wall Street during the 90s, knows the finance world inside out. Well, recently he shared his thoughts on US government efficiency, praising Elon Musk and the US Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, which recently found that nearly $4.7 trillion in government payments were almost impossible to trace due to incorrectly used tracking codes. Well, Belfort, who has openly expressed his admiration for the US President Donald Trump, called the level of fraud and waste biblical, and he warned that without Musk's intervention, the United States could face bankruptcy. Well, before we speak to him, let's just take a sneak peek at a clip from the 2013 film The Wolf of Wall Street.
My name is Jordan Belfort. The year I turned 26, I made $49 million, which really pissed me off because it was $3 shy of $1 million a week.
We're making a name for ourselves.
No
nobody knows if the stock is going to go up, down, sideways, or in circles.
How does this actually work?
There's a big money sign.
They get launched at the time they stick.
This is their gift, okay? They're built to be thrown like a lawn dart.
Stop. Okay? Safety first. Safety is first. We don't want to get a bad reputation.
Well, if you've seen The Wolf of Wall Street, you might be wondering, why is Jordan Belfort giving investment advice and advice to the US government? Well, in 1999, he pleaded guilty to stock market manipulation and running a penny stock scam. Since then, though, he's reinvented himself as a speaker and an author, focusing on ethical investing. He now offers advice on sales techniques and responsible financial practices. Jordan Belfort, the actual Wolf of Wall Street, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to join us from Miami. Great to have you with us. I mean, it seems
My pleasure.
It seems like you've really rebuilt your life. I'm assuming you've rebuilt your bank balance since the darker days of 20 or so years ago. What are you up to these days?
Well, you know, as you said, I don't really give investment advice, so to speak, to individual people. Oh, sorry about that. Wait 1 second. I don't give investment advice to people, but I wrote a book on, you know, how people should invest. And it did really, really well. It was a bestseller. It's called The Wolf of Investing. And it was, you know, basic strategy that I think it's been proven over the last 50 to 75 years about like long-term investing versus speculating. So it's really about that. I'm also a big fan of Bitcoin, which I talk about in the book. But again, you know, not buying Bitcoin to trade in and out, but buying Bitcoin for the next 5 years and so forth, and making it maybe 5-10% of your portfolio. So that's on the investing side. But on the sales trading side, yeah, certainly. I mean, I do that. I give entrepreneurial advice to companies, train their sales forces, their managers. Also, I'm very heavily into artificial intelligence now, and I have a company that is about to really go out of stealth mode, so to speak. And it's about actually an AI voice agent that actually is trained to sell like me. And it's a killer, you know, phone salesperson. It does lead qualification. It does agentic workflow. So that's, I think, the future of the world is AI. And I'm happy to be on the cutting edge of it. I believe in it. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you this later on, but I'll ask you now since you're talking about it. I mean, do you think the sort of the 23-year-old you would have perhaps decided to, in today's world, go straight into the crypto currency universe, or do you think you'd have bypassed Wall Street altogether?
It's difficult to say. I mean, listen, you know, the things that make sense when you're 23 don't make a lot of sense, you know, 30 years later, right? Or 40 years later. So, you know, for me, I really can't say what would have happened. But what I do know is this, is that the lessons I learned from going through that experience really have allowed me to create an incredible life right now and learn from my mistakes. And I think that's the most important thing, is that everyone makes mistakes and you can't be defined by your mistakes. And many people go through life after they failed at something and they get defined by that versus using that failure as a lesson, and they learn, they grow, they do better. And that's how you rebuild your life step by step. It wasn't easy. I worked very hard to do it. And I, you know, was very careful to maintain my ethics and integrity this time the whole way through. And I think that's what life's about. It's about progress. It's not about perfection. It's about learning from what you did wrong and growing in consequence.
We're going to be talking quite a bit about you and your life in just a few minutes. But because we were just talking about US politics as well, I'd just like to ask you a little bit about how you're finding the United States at the moment. We're 5 weeks into the second Trump presidency. I just want to ask if you like the overall direction your country's going in.
I am a massive fan of President Trump. I think he's unbelievable. I honestly, more than ever now. And I think with Elon Musk by his side and the cabinet he's picked, listen, the U.S. has got a budget deficit that is literally out of control and will bankrupt the country if nothing is done. It will. It's simple math at this point, right? So unless things are dramatically changed and the bureaucracy and spending is cut and there's massive fraud, waste, and abuse, it's like the trifecta, fraud, waste, and abuse, right? You know, I used to always wonder, I said, you know, how is it that a country as awesome as the United States, with an economy so vibrant, so many people with massive ingenuity, how is it that we can't pay our bills? How is it that we're in debt? It doesn't make sense. And then you suddenly find out that there's massive fraud and waste and overspending. And that's how it is. So if you were just simply to start running this country like it were a business, I know it can't be all business, but you had some business applied to this country, we would be paying off our deficit very quickly. And I'm really hoping and praying that, Donald Trump, President Trump, with Elon Musk and the rest of the people at Doge are going to get that done.
OK, it sounds like you're a big fan. Is there anything you don't like so far, what we've seen in the last 5 weeks?
Not a single thing. And the reason is because while President Trump says things that seem outlandish, they're all part of a much larger negotiation, a bigger picture. And the things he's accomplished just in 5 weeks are incredible. Massive investment in the United States. Wars are coming to an end, which thank God they are. It's ridiculous. And I wouldn't change one thing he's done, not a single thing.
I just want to cast your mind back to the 1990s when you were in New York earning enormous telephone number type salaries and bonuses on Wall Street. Did you never bump into Donald Trump or sit next to him at a smart restaurant? Because he would have been going to some of the same places as you, I'd have thought. Sure,
I did. We actually flew to Atlantic City together to one of his casinos. He had this great Augusta helicopter. I think it was 1990, maybe 89 or 90. And I was gambling very, very large back then. And myself and another friend of mine, we flew with Donald Trump to Trump Castle. We landed on the roof of the castle. We landed on the steel pier with the Trump Plaza casino, right? And we spent the day and gambled, and it was really cool.
What about Elon Musk? He's about 9 years younger than you, but I'm wondering if you see a bit of your younger self in him.
Listen, again, I'm a huge fan of Elon. In some level, I think that, certain decisions that you make, they put you down a certain path, and then you're on that path. It takes a while to get off that path, which I thankfully did. But I think if I would have went into high tech, I could have certainly, not be Elon Musk, but certainly been a major player in tech. Thankfully, I'm in tech right now with AI. But I think Elon Musk is a very special character. He's brilliant. And the principles he uses to run his businesses, I agree with 100%. I really do. And, success begets more success. He's able to recruit the best talent in the world. So it's becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I love the way he sets these incredibly high goals, and he very often misses them. But it doesn't matter because, halfway to his goal is a victory versus people who are not very successful. They set goals that are on the lower side and they hit them. But what's that? It's mediocrity. So I love the strategies he uses to push people, to push himself. And and it's evident that he's the richest man in the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm surprised. Everything you've told me, the fact you've, been sort of slightly in Donald Trump's slipstream during the course of the last 30 years as well. You admire those two men, Elon Musk, Donald Trump. I mean, have you been in touch with them? And were they to say, Jordan, come and work with us, would you take up the offer?
If I was asked, of course, I'd take up the offer to serve my country. But no one has asked me yet.
All right. Let's talk about the film, The Wolf of Wall Street, and the book, which, of course, you wrote. Do you sometimes watch that film back again? I mean, it came out, 12 years ago, I think it was. But do you sometimes switch on that film and say to yourself, wow, there is a Hollywood blockbuster film about my life?
Yeah, I mean, you can't escape it. You just flick through the channels and it's on somewhere, right? I've watched it. I mean, listen, once a year, some of my friends want to watch it with me, and I love the movie. I love the first half of the movie. I love the first 80%. And then it starts to go downhill, right? And you're like, oh, okay, time to turn the channel, right? But listen, again, I look at my life as a whole, right? And that was one chapter of my life, and it was an amazing chapter, right? And it's who I am today. I mean, it made me into who I am today. The mistakes, the lessons, the pain, the drug addiction, all those things really serve to help me grow. And I'm continuing growing. None of us have stopped in growing. If we do, you're dying. But it was an amazing period in my life and an awesome movie.
Some of my colleagues here in the newsroom were asking me to put this question to you. I mean, out of that whole film, what percentage would you say is fact and what percentage would you say is pure fiction?
I think 90% is true, 10% is fiction.
What's not true?
Like, for example, there's a scene where I punched my wife in the stomach. I never did that. And that just never did anything like that. In fact, they asked me for my permission to put it in there because it was not factually true. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, whatever you want to do. It's a movie. It's not, it's not everything is true. So that was one thing. What else? A lot of the things that weren't true had to do with the timeline. So they changed the timeline to serve the narrative, right? And they also collapsed characters. So, the Mark Hanna character, the Donnie character, much of what Mark Hanna was collapsed into Donnie and all other people as well. So they combined characters. It was very clever what they did. The scene where I met the FBI agent on the boat, that wasn't true, but it was a great scene anyway, and I helped write that scene. But generally speaking, it was very true. I mean, I think the one business thing that was inaccurate is that, the idea was that we were taking companies that didn't really exist public, and that's just false. That was just the easy way of saying that we're doing something wrong, which we were. But it had nothing to do with bad companies. It had to do with manipulating the stocks of companies, which is not as exciting and a bit more difficult to explain. So, but generally the feeling, the craziness in the boardroom, the yacht sinking, the car crash on the Quail, all of that stuff happened.
Yeah, we've been looking at some clips while you've been talking. We saw Leonardo DiCaprio there playing you. I wonder if you liked the fact that he played your part. And I gather the two of you got to know each other quite well. Are you still friends?
Yeah. Leo's a great guy. I mean, I chose him. That was my choice. It was between him and Brad Pitt, and I think that's a pretty great, little, thing to choose from, one or the other. And in the end, Leo came with Scorsese, so it was the perfect combination. And yes, we spent a lot of time together, about a year, and you see how incredibly talented he is when you watch the movie. He channels me really, really effectively.
Let's move on from the film and the book and start talking a bit more about you and what you've been up to. Of course, you were ordered to pay back 110 million, I gather, US dollars to people you were deemed to have defrauded, or whatever the right word is. Have you paid that money back?
Yeah, well, so here's the truth. The truth is it was not $110 million was an arbitrary number, because many people got back a lot of money. So the real loss was probably closer to 40 or 50 million. Still a massive loss, by the way, but not close. And you see that with every time they say, like with Bernie Madoff, it was a huge scam. 50 billion. It turned out to be 5 billion or 10 billion. In other words, they just have a top line number. So there was a fund that was created. We disgorged a lot of money. And at the end of the day, there was $545,000 left in the fund, and no one was claiming the money. No one was claiming it. Since then, I still pay money, for another 6 months or so into the fund, but it's not going to people. There are no people claiming money. So that's the true story.
You often get asked in interviews if you're sorry about what you did, and the interviews I've watched, you've said yes, you sound remorseful, you say remorseful things. So I want to ask you a different question. What do you not regret about that chapter of your life?
I don't regret that it happened, because I don't think living with regret is healthy for your soul, your spirit, and your mind in general. But that doesn't mean that I'm not, really sorry for some of the things I did. Anything that I did that hurt another person, whether it was financially or in any other way, right? I mean, unless you're a psychopath or a sociopath, you would go back to, well, I wish I would have never done that. Of course. But the thing is, you can't change the past. And dwelling in the past is probably the most disempowering thing. Being defined by your past is disempowering. What's empowering is learning the lessons from your past and becoming a better person as a result. And that's, I think, what my life exemplifies.
Yeah, and let's go back in your life and rewind even further and talk about your childhood, because I'd like to know and understand what it was that, set out the life path that you took. What made you want to go to Wall Street? I know you were very enterprising as a youngster. It sounds like you had a quest for wealth. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I absolutely did. Not sure why, but I can remember as far back as I can remember wanting to be rich. And I came from a lower middle class family, but highly educated. We had everything we needed, but not what we wanted. And also, I lived in proximity to an area not far was Long Island, where all the wealthy people were. And it was this whole notion, one day we'll get rich and move to Long Island. That was like a kind of the mantra of my neighborhood, right? And I was a very good student, did very well in school. And my whole family does great, scholastically, and everyone's very successful. So my path was really, I went to college, I was going to be a doctor, and then said, you know what, forget it, I'll go to dental school instead, it's quicker. Ultimately, I hated that. After a day, I dropped out, and I started in sales, and I broke all the records in sales. Like right away, I realized I was this natural-born salesperson of the highest level, and that was really what changed everything. And ultimately, I invented a system called the straight line that's still used all over the world today, and that came to define the path of my life. It took me to Wall Street. It took me to open up a firm that became the largest of its kind in the country and ultimately destroyed me. And then I built myself back up, learned from the errors, and became the person I am today.
So you did your 22 months in prison. You say you learnt your lessons. You were, of course, kind of bling before bling was even a thing. And when you hit rock bottom, I want to know what it was about your bling life that you missed the most. I mean, you had yachts, you had cars, you had flashy watches, you seemed to have everything. What did you miss most, and how did it feel to hit rock bottom and lose everything?
I think far more than the money, the greatest feeling in the world was when I hit rock bottom. That was awesome. It was terrible as I was hitting rock bottom. In other words, it's very hard. When I really had, and I had nothing, zero, I zeroed out. And I was like such a breath of fresh air to completely start again from scratch. It's very difficult when you have $1 million or $2 million left and you're used to spending a lot of money, and $1 million or $2 million is not a lot of money when you're not making money, right? That's the worst part of all. So I think for me, the difficult thing was waiting to go to jail. That was really the time that was most emotionally trying. Once I got to jail, it was great. I'll do my time. And then I actually taught myself to write in jail, and I came out and wrote this book. And it was very difficult. It took a year to write. But, I learned a great lesson about delaying my gratification, spending the time to really work on something and create something that's really valuable to people. People wanted to read the book, and ultimately fueled this new life was the book. So I don't think that it was really losing the money. I always knew I'd make money. I'm one of the greatest salespeople in the world. I'm always going to make money if that's just what it's all about. But it was really about, not being with my children, my reputation being destroyed. Once I hit bottom, it was awesome.
Yeah, and you say that, and it's really ironic because you obviously got a great mind, you got great selling techniques, you're extremely resourceful. I mean, I'm wondering if you were attracted to danger, because your company, Stratton Oakmont, had it been a legitimate business, purely legitimate, would probably have done even better in the longer term than it did during that sort of short, sharp burst. So why didn't you keep it legit?
100%. Good question. Part of it's bad luck. I met some people. What happened was my ability to train salespeople outstripped my ability to find the best stocks out there. And I grew too fast. It was like a lesson I really learned, that sometimes just rapid growth is not the best thing if you don't have the other side, the ability to deliver the product the way you want. Now, it wasn't that the product was bad, so to speak, the stocks themselves, but we had so much buying going into the stocks that the prices became inflated. It was a problem. And the stocks that we were specializing in were coming to reflect the value of Stratton growing so rapidly versus the companies themselves. That set the dynamic. Now, in addition, I met some people. I chose my mentors very poorly, which is a really important lesson. You need to choose your mentors wisely. And I didn't. And it was some people that were doing things illegitimately, and they were like, oh, this is how it's done. And deep down in my heart, I knew it was wrong. But you justify it. Oh, well, everyone's doing it. That's the first step down the road to moral hell, is that taking that first step over the ethical line, which I'll never do again, So, and that started the cascade of events. And you're right, 100%. If I would have not done that, I would have hit the internet boom. I was an IPO company. I would have made a few $1 billion for sure. It was a dunk shot. So, lesson learned.
Yeah, and it was the mid-'80s. You were 25 when Wall Street came out, that iconic film, and perhaps Gordon Gekko was one of your mentors. I mean, you say 100%. You can. He was he? You say you can read people. I've heard you say that on in video clips, and you can spot what kind of a buyer you're sitting in front of or standing in front of. So I want to ask you to read me. Who am I? What kind of a buyer am I? Go on.
I can't read someone. I'm not a mind reader. I can't look at you. Let me see your face. You're easy to sell to. Or what I can do is by asking you a series of questions and taking you down the straight line, so to speak, engaging in a conversation where I'm in control, gathering intelligence, building rapport, and then ultimately presenting my idea to you, I could start to see as whether you're buying or not, I start to say, okay, well, they should be buying at this point because I've made the value proposition very clear. They have the financial resources to why they're still not buying. Why is that? Well, it's one of two things. Either they're not certain that my product is the best, they don't trust me, they don't trust the company that stands behind me, or they're just really difficult to sell to. And if it turns out that it's the latter, then there's strategies I would use to take someone that is very difficult to sell to and temporarily lower their threshold to take action. So it's really not about like mind reading. It's about simply following a system of asking questions, building rapport, and you'll very quickly see as the sale unfolds what type of buyer you're sitting in front of.
And Jordan, I just wanted to ask you, I mean, first of all, do you keep up with a lot of the people you knew during those heady years of your company, Stratton Oakmont? Are you still in touch with those people? And I also want to ask you about building relationships with so much money sort of on the table and so much money at stake. I mean, presumably you had real trust issues with some of the people around you.
Like wives? Maybe. Listen, here's the thing. My friends today from back then are my friends that were there before it happened. So I have very close friends that were friends of mine when I was 2 years old and 4 years old that worked for me, but we're still great friends. And of course, some of the people I did keep in touch with, not that many, but from time to time, whenever I see them around, that's often we always hug, hello, how's it going? My assistant from back in the day, who was in the movie, she's a close friend still. We had dinner the other night. So yeah, I see the FBI agent a lot. He's a good friend of mine, the FBI agent that indicted me. We became very good friends. So I see and speak to him often.
I mean, all of that was, 30 plus years ago. I mean, the world has moved on so much since then. I mean, things have changed so much.
34 years ago. Started 37 years ago.
Exactly. So we're coming up to 40 years. I mean, and think of how politically correct office environments are nowadays and things that, we saw in that film. You wouldn't get away with those today, would you?
No, I mean, I think the world is starting to shift a little bit back towards the center, thank God. But I think it's good that the world is not the way it was. And I think that's a function of many things. It's, there is, a society and progress is made in certain areas. I'm not a progressive, so to speak, right? But I think that there were things that were happening in the workplace that were not good. Those things didn't really happen at Stratton. Honestly, it was if you asked any woman that worked at Stratton, no one was harassed. No one was taken advantage of. It was just a party for everybody. If someone harassed a woman, probably 10 guys would beat them up. It was not like that. It was no like Harvey Weinstein insanity. It just didn't happen like that. But there was things going on that by today's standards would be like, what the hell? I mean, it's like insane. But I can assure you back then it seemed perfectly normal, especially within the four walls of the boardroom. That's the truth.
What was the maddest anecdote you can remember from those that party time at Oakmont?
I can't speak to that on this channel. Let's move past. That's the one question I won't answer because I don't want to shock your viewers. So let's move on.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. Let's talk about something else then. I wanted to ask you about your advice for people who are watching, because you do give a lot of these tutorials online. I've seen a couple of them. Just wondering what your money and investment rules are. I mean, today's younger generation, someone thinking of investing a bit of money, what would you tell them? Stocks, real estate, crypto? What would be your advice?
Very simple. I would take the bulk of my money and put it into a S&P 500 no-load fund, just an index fund that tracks the S&P 500. I would reinvest my dividends, put money in whenever I can, no matter what. Don't even look at the price. Don't care. Put it in a tax-free account if possible. Maximize your tax advantages by doing that so you don't have to pay taxes on your dividends. Just hold it and let it compound for the next 20, 30, or 40 years. You'll end up with millions and millions of dollars. The S&P compounds at about 11% a year, and that really adds up, especially towards the end. That's number one. Second thing I would do is I'd buy Bitcoin. I'd buy at least 10% of my portfolio I put into Bitcoin. I really believe in it. I don't care that it's down right now. It makes me want to buy more. You have to buy Bitcoin and hold it for the next, 3 to 5 years or longer if you really want to do it right. And I don't think it's about trading in and out. There's people that do that and I'm sure do well, but you have to be professional. It's very dangerous. I would not buy any other crypto unless you want to have fun. Like, today the SEC announced meme coins are now legal. But they're just like nothing. And then the disclosure is, hey, you're buying nothing. It's fun. It's like a Beanie Baby or whatever. Great. You can buy meme coins, but that's just speculation. And you got to know that every dollar you put into that, you're probably going to lose. So it's just for fun, not for seriously to make money, right? And then as far as real estate goes, excellent investment, but you got to know what you're doing. Make sure that you're, you've educated yourself, that you're not being taken advantage of. And other than that, I think that, it's just really not much to do. I think it's listen, inactivity is your friend when it comes to investing. Activity is the enemy. Trying to go in and out, buy, sell. You don't make money like that.
All right, that's sound advice. Just lastly, I know you're really tired of people asking you to sell that pen. You must see and hear that the whole time when you do interviews. So I want to ask you something different. I'll put you on the spot here, Jordan. Sell for us, in a couple of words, this news channel, Al Arabiya News. It's brand new. We've only been on air for a few months. Sell it for us. Come on.
Okay, well, first of all, I have to ask you, before I could sell something, I have to find out about who you're trying to sell it to. Who's the audience you're trying to attract? What are your best programs? What's your value proposition? Tell me why, and I'll sell it.
We're on top of the news. We're ahead of the news. Big focus on the Middle East, massive focus on the United States. Our viewers, it's a global audience. And we're not a shouty channel. We're a channel that lets people that speak to us, we give them the courtesy to finish their sentences without cutting them off. How would you sell that?
Well, I would put those together into a language pattern. I would say, listen, we're a new channel, but we stand out for a few key reasons here that make us better than everybody else. And all I would say is this: I'm not asking you to dedicate your whole life to this channel. Just give us a shot. Spend an hour, watch one of our programs, see what you think. You'll notice some key differences. Number one, we're not a shouting channel. We let our guests speak. We have an open view. We focus on the Middle East and D.C., what's happening in the U.S., which is key. So you're going to be better off in your life simply by taking in this information, not being preached to, not having someone give their opinion and extort the news. We take things down the middle, straight as they go. And I think that in the next few years, we're going to be the biggest channel in the Middle East where people like you will go to get their news, our first source. We just want you to give us a shot. Don't marry us. Let's date. Watch the program an hour here, an hour there. And believe me, you'll be very glad you did.
That is extremely helpful. I'm going to play that to my boss after this and really appreciate that. Has anyone else could do that before?
Yeah, here and there. But I think that, just to understand, I would never do that normally. But if someone asked me, hired me, I would spend like a day researching it and then coming up with the perfect way to do it. You get it? There's a very big difference in winging it and making stuff up on the fly. And that's true with all sales. A lot of it is in preparation, and you got to prepare yourself. That was just a quick boom, but I would do a far better job by preparing myself, and so would anybody else.
Well, we all like to hear very much indeed. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. It's been really good fun. Jordan Belfort, the actual Wolf of Wall Street, thank you so much for speaking to Al Arabiya News.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, as the US President Donald Trump prepares to host the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House on Friday, he made it clear in one of his first cabinet meetings that Ukraine could forget about joining NATO. This was a key demand from the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Well, President Trump stated that while Putin would have to make concessions, NATO membership was off the table for Ukraine.
I don't want to start right now, but I can tell you that NATO you can forget about. I think that's probably the reason the whole thing started. And I think, JD, we can say that. Do you have a statement on that? You've been very much involved. I gave him the beauty.
Well, for more, we're joined by another special guest for today's programme, Ambassador John Bolton, the former US Ambassador to the United Nations and former National Security Advisor under President Trump during his first term. Ambassador Bolton, it's great to have you with us once again here on Al Arabiya News. This week marked the 3-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine. You said earlier on this week that you think President Trump has effectively switched sides when it comes to this war. What's your thinking behind that comment?
Well, by the statements that he's made about Volodymyr Zelensky being a dictator and yet refusing to characterize Putin as a dictator, he's named the wrong person. He has said, and many of his top advisors have said, they think that Ukraine provoked the war. They don't think it was a war of Russian aggression. And perhaps most visibly, the United States voting with Russia and Belarus and North Korea against a European resolution at the UN General Assembly condemning Russia's aggression against Ukraine. So the U.S. on one side, all of its NATO allies on the other side, unthinkable for any other president, really an embarrassment for the United States.
Yeah, OK, so that must have been a massive shock to you as a former US ambassador to the United Nations. You know, you are saying, in a sense, that President Trump is capitulating or surrendering to to the Russians. But let me put it this way. I mean, a lot of people we speak to say President Trump is trying new methods to address old problems. How do you respond to that?
Well, look, you can always achieve peace by surrendering. There's no doubt about it. That's not a new method, but it's one that you've seen in history. Trump supporters have a lot of ways of trying to explain what he says. It's all bargaining, you know, it's just doing it for effect. But the real problem is he doesn't have an overarching national security strategy or philosophy. He doesn't really understand what's at stake. And by comments he's made, such as saying that that Ukraine will not be restored to its full sovereignty and territorial integrity, that Ukraine will not be offered NATO membership, that the U.S. will not provide security guarantees in a post-settlement environment. All of these are Russia's positions, and he has given them away without getting anything in return before the negotiations even start. So for somebody who wrote The Art of the Deal, you'd think you would understand one basic point is don't give away the store before you've even begun, and yet that's what he's done. The only complaint the Kremlin has about what Trump has said is they're probably kicking themselves for not having asked for more earlier, because they likely would have gotten it.
What do you think all of this means then for the NATO alliance, given that, as you say as well, Ukraine has been told that it's very unlikely to be joining that alliance, and it's heard that from Washington?
It's a very bad sign. I think it would be a catastrophic mistake for the U.S. to agree to a settlement that left Ukraine vulnerable. You know, the West as a whole, the entire NATO alliance, didn't perform well in 2014, the first time Russia invaded Ukraine. And that was a basis on which the Kremlin could conclude that they could probably do it again and get the same reaction. So it just shows that appeasement ultimately doesn't work, and we're paying the price for it now. An inadequate settlement here would simply give Russia time to repair its badly battered armed forces, try and get its economy back in better shape, and then come back in 5-6 years once again for a third invasion of Ukraine, or to go after other former republics from the Soviet Union, all in aid of Vladimir Putin's stated objective, really, of recreating the Russian Empire.
OK, President Trump is due to meet Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, tomorrow at the White House. You've been in President Trump's inner circle. What do you think he really thinks of Volodymyr Zelensky?
Well, I'm sorry to say he doesn't like him. He has not had good relations with Zelensky since the famous perfect phone call in the summer of 2019 about where Trump essentially threatened Zelensky with to withhold American security assistance if he didn't cooperate in looking into the allegations about meddling in our 2016 presidential elections. Trump often says he believes that if he has good relations with a foreign head of state, then the U.S. has good relations with that country. look, personal relations are a part of it, obviously, but ultimately matters of state are determined by national interest. And Trump really doesn't understand what America's national interest is. Vladimir Putin, whom he considers a friend, knows what he thinks Russia's interests are. Zelensky knows what Ukraine's are. But because Trump thinks he's Putin's friend, he doesn't realize that actually Putin is manipulating him. But he's Putin's friend, and he's not friends with Zelensky. That's bad news for Ukraine.
OK, what about the British Prime Minister who's at the White House today, Sir Keir Starmer? Is that a relationship you see working?
Well, I think it's going to be very difficult to keep the special relationship together. I think the best thing that Starmer could do would be to flatter Trump and hope that that will satisfy his ego. Starmer could do a couple of things. He could offer to nominate Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Trump wants it very badly, so why not nominate him? Shinzo Abe, the former prime minister of Japan, nominated him during the first term. Didn't go anywhere, but can't hurt to try again. Trump is enamored of the British royal family. He was never happier, in my experience, in 17 months in the White House than his 2 meetings with Queen Elizabeth. So I think if Starmer were to offer a state visit where Trump could meet now King Charles, met him when he was Prince Charles, at Buckingham Palace, I think that would go a long way for the United Kingdom. OK, well, maybe a state visit will be in the offing. Of course, there are some people in the British Prime Minister's cabinet who've been rude about President Trump, and he's expressed irritation at comments that they've made in the past. I mean, as someone who has known Donald Trump well, who's currently not on the right side of Donald Trump, but in the past has been on the right side, and you're not alone, and people do come back into the fold. Do you see him as someone who mends fences and patches things up when there's a relationship that's gone sour? Well, there's one certain way to get back into Trump's good graces, and that's to kiss his ring. And so if Foreign Minister David Lammy is prepared to do that, I think all will be well. Trump is totally transactional and looks out for not the best interest of the country, I think, but the best interest of Donald Trump.
I mean, do you see yourself somehow patching things up, mending fences with President Trump, and therefore perhaps getting your security detail back, because that's been terminated?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen in that regard. Look, it's a symbol of Trump's personality that he cut off not just mine, Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, former Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, former Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley, really not taking the country's interest into account when American officials, current or former, are threatened by a hostile foreign power and the country leaves them defenseless. That's an incentive for the adversaries to take advantage of it. I don't think Trump cares about that. And that's why I think he terminated the security. What the future will bring, who knows?
And what does that mean for you, Ambassador Bolton, not to have that security detail?
Well, I'm taking steps to try and substitute for it. I have the highest regard for the Secret Service, but I will take other steps.
Earlier on this week, another headline-grabbing story was that AI video of Gaza that President Trump shared on social media. Seemed to sort of capture his vision for what Gaza could be. I don't know if you saw that video. If you did, what did you think of it?
Well, I think this is Trump at work. I think he's probably hoping on his next visit to the region to see the leaders of the Gulf states and ask them what piece of the action they're going to take on building the Eastern Mediterranean Riviera. Look, it's never going to happen, and I don't think really there will be a significant American role in whatever happens to Gaza. I think what Trump has done that's necessary is raise the question, really, what is the long-term plan for the citizens of Gaza? I think rebuilding a high-rise refugee camp would be a mistake. I think it's likely to lead to the same outcome we saw on October the 7th. And I think the part of the problem has been that the Palestinians, going back to the radical leaders of the region in the 50s and 60s, weaponized them to help throw Israel into the sea. Well, that isn't going to happen. So I would look to bring in the UN High Commissioner for Refugees to take over responsibility, certainly for the people of Gaza, and look to a longer-term solution that may mean resettlement. I'm not talking about forcible resettlement. UNHCR doesn't do forcible resettlement, but neither does UNHCR have permanent refugee camps.
Okay, Ambassador Bolton, I'm told you have to go. Just briefly, if you will, one word to describe President Trump's attitude to foreign policy. What word would you choose?
Well, I think his isolationist instincts are pretty clear in the way he's treated Ukraine and NATO. I think he is very transactional and really without much of a philosophy. And I think it's going to be a very dangerous period ahead.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for your time. Former US Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
So that is what President Trump's former national security advisor turned critic John Bolton has to say. Let's get some different opinions now. We can listen to what the Vice President, J.D. Vance, had to say about those who accuse President Trump of conceding to Russia.
I just want to push back against some of the criticism I've seen of the administration on this, because every single time the president engages in diplomacy, you guys preemptively accuse him of conceding to Russia. He hasn't conceded anything to anyone. He's doing the job of a diplomat, and he is, of course, the diplomat in chief as the President of the United States.
Okay, the US Vice President hitting back there. Well, let's get some more analysis. We can speak to Scotty Nell Hughes, a Republican strategist and political commentator who joins us from Nashville. Scotty, it's great to have you with us once again here on Al Arabiya News. Really appreciate you taking the time. We heard before the Vice President, John Bolton, speaking. He told this channel that President Trump has switched sides, and I think he was thinking about that vote at the UN. What's your opinion? Has President Trump switched sides here?
Well, it's interesting because John Bolton's now accusing Trump of being in Putin's pocket and that he's obviously an ally to Russia. But if anybody switched sides, that was John Bolton, because that's what he accused Donald Trump 4 years ago of being already. And that's one of the reasons, one of his biggest accusations. So that's nothing new coming out of John Bolton's mouth. But the fact that he thinks that Donald Trump has switched sides, as J.D. Vance so eloquently pointed out, he is just bringing people to the table. That's all Donald Trump is doing diplomatically. And at this point, Trump has said since day one on the campaign trail is that he wanted to end the war. He wanted to end the coffins that were covering home, that were covered in flags. And he wants to bring peace to the situation, whether you're talking about the Middle East or you were talking about the Russia-Ukraine crisis. And this is how Donald Trump is doing it this week.
I mean, some people say it's very well for President Trump and his allies to hit back at John Bolton. But let's not forget, John Bolton was propelled onto the international stage by Donald Trump himself, who relied on him for national security advice for 17 months, Scotty.
Well, and I think that's the reason why we're seeing such dramatic appointees this year, is Trump realized that he was given very bad advice in his first administration. He appointed some of the very snakes that took him out into the Oval Office, John Bolton being one of them. But John Bolton has always been a long-term neocon in his long years of service that he had in the United States. It should have been no surprise that he was going to turn on Donald Trump once he realized that Trump's main interest, as he stated so accurately, was that he was going to put America first when it came to international conflict. So John Bolton had a long history of proving himself that there wasn't a war that John Bolton did not like and did not like the United States to be involved in. And nobody's ever questioned why that is. But to your point of saying that he used to advise Donald Trump, I think that's why you're seeing such dramatic appointees such as Pete Hegseth and even J.D. Vance as vice president this go around, is because he made such poor choices and took bad advice the first term.
But weren't you surprised to see the United States siding with Russia and against nearly all its European allies at the United Nations, backing a resolution that simply called for a swift end to the war, that didn't insist on Ukraine's territorial integrity? I mean, what's that all about?
Well, I was not so, and first of all, let me correct the record. Donald Trump did not side with Russia, no more than Israel sided with Russia. What they sided with is peace and bringing absolute fairness to the table when it brings everybody to debate. There's no surprise. The EU has been, for some reason, not stepping up in this conflict. And I think Donald Trump, one of the reasons why the American people sent him to the Oval Office was not only to end the war, but stop the bleeding of the American taxpayer dollars that have been unaccounted for in this crisis. And that is what Donald Trump is trying to do. I think it really infuriated Trump when he found out and he was told, and we have it on record, Zelensky saying that it was a grant, that they were not intending to pay back the United States until Donald Trump has started to hold his feet to the fire. And yet the EU is going to get paid back with some of the rich minerals of Ukraine. I think when Trump heard that, he realized, and then he also realized that at one point Zelensky 2 weeks ago was ready to come to the table, was ready to bring peace to the region. And then when the EU came in and said, no, we'll keep financing this war if the United States backs out, I think at that point Donald Trump is having to come in and truly put all the cards on the table and push things where in the past the previous administration was very much a coward to do so.
Yeah, but I think where the Europeans are coming from is that they've given as much, if not according to some calculations, more by way of financial assistance to Ukraine collectively than the United States has. That's one thing. The other thing is that President Trump's been putting cards on the table before the negotiations have even started, like saying, OK, never mind about Ukraine membership, NATO membership for Ukraine. That's not going to happen. Ukraine's territorial integrity, let's not spend too much time on that either. Let's give up that territory to the Russians. I mean, all these concessions to the Russians, but what on earth is he getting in return?
Okay, well, first of all, the EU has spent nowhere near the $256 billion that the Americans have promised over the past few years. And even Zelensky has admitted that he doesn't have that money accounted for. The EU has done a very small percentage as compared to maybe, I think they said 100 billion compared to our 256, or, a very small fraction. That's the facts. The second part of all of this is that the concessions, Russia is not going to take back the territory. What he's going to do is allow it to be independent again. That same territory back in 2018, and we can go down that discussion of what it was, they voted, they themselves decided that the area of Donetsk wanted to become their own territory, their own country, separate from Ukraine, separate from Russia. All Russia did was make sure that they had that ability to do so when Ukraine came in and started doing genocide on any Russians that did live in the area. So there's a lot of things within that area, but the reality of it is right now we have to bring all of the leaders to the table, and the ones that are fighting it the most are the ones that you have to be a little bit weary of, because obviously their main intentions do not want global peace. All they want to do is continue this war and continue to play G.I. Joe with their own citizens, sons and daughters. And I think there's something very deplorable about that whole approach that we've seen Zelensky all of a sudden decide to flip on.
Yeah, come on. I mean, Ukraine didn't invade itself. And this is happening in a part of the world where Vladimir Putin has declared he wants to rebuild the Soviet Union and take back the countries he thinks are rightfully his. I mean, this didn't happen on its own.
Vladimir, okay, like I said, we can debate this whole issue, but Vladimir Putin has never said that he's going to try to take back over Europe, or he's going to try to, that's that fear-mongering, that gaslighting that tries to keep this conflict going. Vladimir Putin, literally, all he said is that I do not want Ukraine to be able to join NATO so that there's not missiles 300 miles from Moscow, something that every country would not want to have, on their borders as well. But ever since this crisis has started, there was no end game. And I think the United States is tired of having these wars like we've seen in Afghanistan, like we saw in the past in Vietnam, South Korea, where we have had to continue to be this police state and pouring money into it, into this just never-ending bottomless pit. And that's what I think a lot of Americans have seen Ukraine about to be able to turn into. And so they're just shutting off the spigot while we still have that ability to.
OK, so I think it's fair to say there is a certain degree of mistrust on both sides. I mean, President Donald Trump said on Wednesday, he vented his feelings about the European Union. It wasn't entirely flattering. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
I mean, look, let's be honest. The European Union was formed in order to screw the United States. That's the purpose of it. And they've done a good job of it, but now I'm president.
What will happen if these countries or the EU retaliate?
They can't. I mean, they can try, but they can't. We have made a decision. We'll be announcing it very soon, and it'll be 25%, generally speaking, and that'll be on cars and all other things. And European Union is a different case than Canada, different kind of case. They've really taken advantage of us in a different way.
President Trump speaking there. I mean, Scotty, Europe has been a long time US partner and ally. I mean, do you think that's no longer the case?
Well, I think, if you want the same intentions, but Donald Trump is approaching this like a businessman, not a politician. And when you look at who has the EU, as America has continued to go into trillions of dollars in debt, has the EU really been a supporter and a partner of the United States when we've had our own crises in our border? If they were so much of a partner of us and trying to encourage us, and it was a mutually fair relationship, why do we continue to send U.S. aid over to all of these other different countries for just absolutely ridiculous projects, from transgender issues to cosmic books, all of those sorts of issues? I think it's really been a long time that the EU and America, while we might like good on paper, even Britain itself, the UK, voted to separate itself from the EU because of the type of toxic atmosphere that's become. There's so much conflict within the countries within the EU right now that you see these type of pop-ups, you see different resolutions of different people running for office not being able to assume office after the people put in. I think the EU needs to focus on itself and get its house in order, just like the United States needs to focus on itself, get our house in order. And once we have ourselves back into what I consider to be a good working position, then we can start to work again with each other. And then we can start to have these conversations. But right now, I think you're dealing with two countries that have a whole agenda of the past that is really starting to try to weigh it down. And there's certain leaders that are popping up, like Donald Trump, trying to set the record straight.
Well, the Russians must be delighted, and talks between the Americans and the Russians are taking place, I think, as we speak, at the Consul General, the U.S. Consul General's residence in Istanbul. I mean, where do you see this relationship heading to now between Moscow and Washington?
Well, make no mistake, there's no president who's put more sanctions on the Russian Federation prior to Biden than Donald Trump. Biden just built on top of those, did not take any away. Trump is going to look at this as mutual respect. We're still dealing with the country that has the largest nuclear arsenal in the world. In fact, you add up everybody else, and you're still not even going to get to that number with the United States if you add up the United States and their allies. So it only makes sense for the good of future generations that we bring peace to the table and that we bring mutual respect. We do show, strength at the table, but so does Vladimir Putin. And so I think both have the end game of wanting to not only decimate the global economy, which is what would happen if we go to war, but more importantly, bring peace to the regions instead of having this constant conflict that, if you let it to Vladimir Zelensky in the EU right now, seems like would never be ending.
Yeah, I mean, with regards to this sort of the animosity towards Brussels that we've been hearing from the new administration in Washington, I mean, we've heard, for example, the United States saying that the EU cannot retaliate against EU tariffs. In fact, Donald Trump said that, but they can, in fact, because, I mean, the EU is the largest trader of manufactured goods and services in the world. It's home to 450 million people, and if you include the UK, who's having to choose now between Washington and Brussels for its alliances, it's like 500,000, which is the combined population of Russia and the United States. I mean, doesn't the United States need Europe to a certain extent? I mean, that's a lot of consumers for US products out there.
Well, and that's the issue. We shouldn't need anybody. No country should have to need another country for existence. But all that the United States and Donald Trump is doing is asking fair trade. You put tariffs on us, we're going to put the exact number back on you. I don't understand why there's a problem with this. If those conversations lead to tariffs, then the conversation should be, for so long, the United States has literally just rolled over, and they've paid to play for diplomacy in some of these countries. Those days of paying for power by the United States is done. I think now it's going to be a mutual respect thing. I think Donald Trump realizes that the whole, we need everybody rises together, and that's not by downplaying anybody at this stage. And so if the EU can rise with the United States, great. But at this time, while I don't want to in any way disrespect the people that live in Europe, it's absolutely a beautiful area, beautiful region. Economically, national security-wise, really has not been that big of a benefit to the United States, and yet we've continued to stand by their side time and time again when they've had attacks. So I think Donald Trump he realized also in 2020 that a lot of those EU leaders did nothing to stand up for him and did nothing to work with him. And the second that he was out of office, did everything they could to slander him and to shut the door in his face. He realized that they were not his friends, that he was given bad information. So I think at this point, Donald Trump is saying, I'm going to act like a business, and the United States is going to be back in business, and we're going to live by the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Something that has not been missing, that was missing from the past administration. Instead, it was more like roll over and play dead.
Marco Rubio, US Secretary of State, told Fox News yesterday the NATO alliance is, quote, not in jeopardy. Do you think he'd have said that if it wasn't perhaps under threat in some way?
Well, I think just like Trump did in his first term, he is looking to every member of NATO to pay their fair share, to raise their standards. Some of them have risen up since Donald Trump. Some of them backed off under Joe Biden. And I think as long as we can have an alliance where everybody is into it and it's not just being completely financed by the U.S. taxpayer, I think that it's a good thing to have, even though it's completely outdated and against why NATO was originally created. I think anytime that you can have partners and alliances for national security or for trade, it's a good thing. As long as everybody is treating each other fairly and there's not one person that's paying the bigger share, as has been the past. So I think Marco Rubio is correct. NATO is probably not going to go anywhere, even though I wouldn't necessarily be sad if it did, because once again, we've had several attacks here in the United States. We've yet to see the EU or any other members of NATO's come to our defense. It's always been based on our shoulders. When it's come to President Trump trying to close our borders, he received extreme criticism from European countries during his first term. Now that those same European countries are having the issues that they're having on their borders, they've been a little bit silent during Trump's second term. But the reality of it is Trump doesn't have many friends in the EU, and the ones that he could be friends with, unfortunately, the EU and the government refuses to see, like what we've seen in some of these elections in Romania, in Germany. We're going to look at France. I think more and more the people are starting to speak out, and they're choosing leaders that belong to Donald Trump's philosophy of governing, not like their past leaders.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed, as ever. Scotty Nell Hughes, we really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you.
President Trump says it is for Europe to provide security in Ukraine if a peace deal is agreed. Well, this, of course, as the British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer visits the White House today. Well, President Trump has proposed the US extracts rare earth minerals in Ukraine, as well as other minerals, as part of a repayment deal for previous US security support during the war. But Kyiv says it has received far less than that from the United States in aid, and that the deal lacks the security guarantees that it needs. Well, for more analysis, we're joined here in the studio by Riyad Kahwaji, who is Al Arabiya's military affairs analyst. Great to have you with us once again, Riyad. The British Prime Minister is visiting the White House today. What message do you think he brings with him?
Please, don't do it. Basically, there are fears growing in Europe that the plans they had for the past 3 years in engaging Russia and the Ukraine war is going to be upended with whatever plans President Trump has in place with a deal with Russia and this agreement with Ukraine. They are concerned that this agreement is going to give up Ukrainian territory to the Russians, is going to weaken the position of NATO and Ukraine in this whole scenario right now in Europe. So the Prime Minister is now in Washington to find out how true are these fears and speculations and whether he can do something about it.
Yeah, and what he can do about it, I think President Trump will want to know, is can the British provide troops, for example, peacekeeping troops eventually in Ukraine? Is that something that you think is realistic?
The UK today has a total armed forces of about 185,000, according to many of the sources out there, give or take some. This is including the forces serving on the bases abroad. So the UK military has been quite efficient in using the 185,000 troops in protecting the island, the homeland, and in manning the other, expeditionary forces and bases abroad. So are we talking about a few hundred or a few thousand? It makes a big difference here. UK and all of European countries have a big shortage in manpower. They have gone on this policy of shrinking the armed forces since the end of the Cold War. Now, after the Ukraine war broke out, they all went into a state of panic, facing reality of having a much too shrunk of forces, and they've been, frankly, depending a lot on the U.S. muscles in filling this gap. Now, I think a lot of European countries have decided to increase defense spending to have more power. So for now, the big question here, how much is the UK expected to send to Ukraine in case it's required? It's going to be very challenging for the UK to do so, and definitely the UK will have to increase defense spending to be able to accommodate all this and the other challenges coming ahead.
Yeah, I mean, ahead of this visit, the British Prime Minister said we're going to increase defence spending from 2.3% of GDP to 2.5%, then 3% by the year, well, from 2027 onwards. I mean, that's obviously going to please Donald Trump to some extent, but is it enough?
Well, it's not just to please Donald Trump, it's also to face reality. What if the U.S. continues or goes about carrying out the threat of reducing the size of U.S. forces in Europe? Who's going to fill this gap? The European countries will have to do so. The UK will have also to be more dependent. The challenge in Europe is that you need to have bigger armies, especially when you have Russia as a threat. It's a different story when dealing with like China, where you have to have bigger navies, for power projection. It's more of a naval maritime confrontation. But in Europe, you need to have bigger armies to deal with a rising threat from Russia, and this is quite challenging. And definitely, it will need this steady rise in defense spending.
In terms of this special relationship that people talk about a lot between the British and the Americans, it's been there since the Second World War, this transatlantic relationship. Do you think it's alive and well?
This is very much based on ideology, where from World War II, after World War II, this regime that prevailed in Europe and globally, where we had a global governance dominated by the liberal democracies and the U.S. at the center of it. This was the transatlantic relationship that was manifested in the Allies in World War II and then in the Cold War that followed, where it emerged triumphant. And this was ideology of the liberal democracies. We have the theory of the unipolar world, where the U.S., with its liberal democracies as the allies, that make the U.S. as a superpower. Now we have a president who does not look at the world in an ideological way. He looks at it in matter of a neo-realist approach, where it is all about security and self-interest. U.S. first, America first. This is where is going to be undermining this understanding that prevailed in the post-Cold War. And we're going to see a return to the idea of imperialist way of thinking, where under the pretext of security, national security, we can do land grabs, we can have controls on like Greenland, Panama, and all this talk. This is where it comes from, where it is the interest, the security, national security interest will dominate instead of thinking as a group of liberal democracies facing or having these values prevailing globally and dominating the global governance.
And where does that leave NATO? Where does NATO fit in, do you think, to President Donald Trump's priorities list?
Well, for President Trump, that he doesn't see it as fair that the U.S. is providing all this for nothing. And he looks at it in very much like, as a trade-off. U.S. is putting that much in terms of military power, investing that much, while at the same time Europe The trade deficit is in favor of Europe, so he's looking that the U.S. is coming up on the losing end. That's spending on the trade side, it is on the losing side, and on the military side, it is contributing the biggest force. And here is where the logic of President Trump, that he wants to see things even up, that Europe has to give back in terms of trade or pay more in terms of defense spending.
So much is happening this week, Riyadh, with regards to what's happening in Ukraine. We've had the French president visiting the White House. Today it's the British Prime Minister. Tomorrow it's the Ukrainian president. There are talks happening in Istanbul between the Russians and the Americans. There's a summit in the UK on Sunday hosted by Sir Keir Starmer. A lot is happening. And at the same time, the Russians are continuing to set out their red lines. One of them being, we will not give up any territory out of the areas that we've annexed. The red lines are coming from the Russians. There don't seem to be too many red lines or any concessions coming the other way, do there?
For the U.S., for President Trump, he sees this as a gain in terms of the greater picture where China is in there. For the U.S., they see that a deal with Russia that would end the war in Ukraine, looking at that, Russia has made all these gains and there should be a deal reached from their perspective. But at the end, once Russia is pacified and Russia believes that it has the U.S. as a friend, it will start moving away from China. And this would be a move to isolate China. For the U.S., for this administration, the main target in this whole thing is China. And they want to bring Russia on their side. And they see this agreement as a way to do so, and also as one way for the U.S. to make gains from the investment made in assisting the Ukrainians through this minerals agreement with the Ukrainian government. This is the way this administration is looking at this whole thing. It is America's interest, America's first, and how to even up things, from their perspective. It is something completely unorthodox, something that we have not seen in any of political science books, with all the theories, international relations theories of the Western, politicians. It is a whole new approach, but it is what it is right now, and I think Europe and everybody else will have to deal with this situation where now we have a more of neo-realist presidency in the White House that is managing things, and everybody will have to reshape, redo their foreign policies, their national security policies to accommodate this new reality.
But do you really think that America's allies, if we can still call them that, will agree to a deal that is very favourable to Russia, quite favourable to the United States, in form of that minerals deal that we talked about? But what about everyone else? What about the Europeans who've given plenty of aid, plenty of military assistance? What about the Ukrainians who, by the way, haven't received the $500 million US dollars worth of military assistance the White House is saying they've received? They say they've received much less than that. But doesn't the deal look rather unfavourable to everyone apart from Russia and America?
In one way, that's true. But the thing is, the question that presents itself here, what can Europe do about this? Will Europe take a unified stance in dealing with this new reality? And what should they do to the U.S.? Should they tell the U.S., okay, we don't want anything from you, just leave. We will take care of Ukraine on our own. We can send troops and forces and help save Ukraine? Or are they going to face the reality, the hard reality right now, which is that they have been dependent on the U.S. for too long, and the U.S. is the only power that can even up the situation vis-a-vis Russia inside Europe, and therefore they have few options or very few things they can do to stop whatever agreement that Mr. Trump wants to get with Russia.
Sure, and that seemed to be something along the lines of what the new German Chancellor was saying when he talked about independence for Europe from the United States. Just before we finish, just tell us briefly, what is the situation on the battlefield in Ukraine right now as you understand it?
Well, as we see it, Russians are making steady gains at big cost. There are those who question whether Russia can continue to make these gains for a year or two. The Russians have managed to get their act together with their industrial complex, producing enough tanks, enough ammunition, and so forth to provide for the war front, and it enabled them to, gain the momentum and start making these progress on various fronts. The Ukrainians have had a problem with the manpower and also in receiving military aid in time from the U.S., from various parts, and they ended up losing a lot of ground, but they managed to inflict heavy losses in the Russians, and many experts believe that Russia might not be able to sustain another year of such losses.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. Always great having your analysis. Riyad Kahwaji, Al Arabiya's military affairs analyst. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, that is all we have time for on Global News today. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for more exclusive interviews. Until then, bye-bye.
At Al Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Al Arabiya News,
It's very impressive.
where knowledge meets perspective.
Mexico City. It's got cultural attractions and a gastronomy scene you won't be able to resist. Aside from the sights to see and things to do, Mexico is hailed for many other achievements. In the city, crime is down and the air is clean. Plus, the capital city has already gone through many achievements. Its commute system is very efficient and accessible too. It's got a green movement that balances out the modernity of the metropolis. Biking is very much welcome here. That on weekends, some roads are closed to make way for cyclists. Inviting, with pep and vigor and buzzing with energy, Mexico City is definitely one to get to know. Mexico City's historic center includes Coyoacan, which is the original settlement for the conquistadores. Today, it has become an enclave of artists and writers such as Frida and Diego, and it exudes colonial charm. A worthy place to visit is Zocalo, which is the center of the city. It is a vast plaza flanked by the Cathedral of Mexico City, the National Palace, and the Colonial Arcade. Zocalo is in fact one of the world's largest city squares. Also nearby are a cluster of vendors. Among their products are shawls, knitted sweaters, pottery, beaded jewelry, and intricately carved figures in stone, obsidian, and all manners of trinkets. Calle Madero is a pedestrian destination that connects the Zocalo with other iconic places. You'll find the Banco Nacional de Mexico nearby. Within the greenery of Bosque de Chapultepec, Mexico's Central Park is the Castillo de Chapultepec. It is called the Castillo de Chapultepec and is one of the city's gems. It is known for its gilded rooms, sweeping marble staircases, sprawling terraces, and Versailles-like carriages. One of the world's great museums is the National Museum of Anthropology. It features one of the most important collections of hard-to-find pre-Hispanic artifacts. Other noteworthy places include the Frida Kahlo Museum. Then, there's also the Diego Rivera Studio, where you'll see brushes, jars of pigments, and skeletons of demonic figures there. Mexico City is also a place to eat. Must-tries include enchiladas, short ribs or turkey, tostadas, carnitas de pescado, and other seafood creations. The city is a good place to enjoy the scene, the people, and culture as you dine. There is simply a bevy of culinary feats in Mexico City.
At Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News,
It's very impressive.
where knowledge meets perspective.
From the White House to Gaza, Kiev to Beijing, elections, economics, and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deepfake, and artificial intelligence,
They've got to have a vote and a say.
it's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
My campaign is going very well.
presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers.
As